She counted the coins twice. They were the electric bill. $14 for clearance school shoes, and a line of 6 people watching her hands. Olivia Grant is 24, a black woman who cleans 3 apartment units on Dean Street for a management company that pays her late. At home, an eviction notice sits half hidden under a placemat. The fridge behind it is empty. Her son Malik is 8, missing a front tooth, wearing sneakers a size too tight. She taught him one sentence: a lost thing still belongs to somebody. That night in the rain, crossing the mall parking lot, Malik sees a black wallet drop from a Korean man's coat. He runs it back before his mother can grab his arm. Han Tae-jun. They call him the quiet one. Black suit, no tie, 2 men flanking him. A koi fish inked up the side of his neck. He opens the wallet. Cash, cards, a photograph, a small metal key. He asks the boy why he didn't keep the money. Malik repeats his mother's sentence and refuses the reward. Hours later, there are 3 men at her door. He knows her address. He sets a case of money on her kitchen table, and she looks at it the way you look at a loaded gun. She carries it back down 3 flights in the rain. But nobody in that parking lot understood what had really happened in those 8 seconds. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Olivia Grant counted the coins twice before she let herself look at the price tag again. $14. Clearance rack, back corner of the store, a cardboard sign taped crooked to the metal pole. The shoes in her hand were navy blue with a white stripe down the side. Size 3. Malik's size, if she believed the salesgirl, and she had decided to believe the salesgirl because the alternative was walking out. She spread the coins along the counter in rows of 10, quarters first, then dimes. The nickels went in a smaller row because there were fewer of them, and because she wanted the register girl to see the shape of it, the order of it, the fact that a woman counting coins could still do it neatly. Behind her, the line breathed. $12.75, the register girl said. Olivia pushed a dime forward, then another. She had rehearsed this in the apartment at 6 that morning, sitting on the floor with a dish towel spread under the jar so the coins wouldn't roll under the fridge. She knew the number before she left. She had known the number for 9 days. 13 even, the girl said. A man behind her shifted his weight. Olivia heard his shopping basket knock against his knee. She kept her eyes on the counter. 2 more quarters. A dime. 3 nickels. $13.90. Her fingers found the last of them at the bottom of the coin purse. 4 pennies. She lined them up in a small square, corner to corner, because her hands wanted something to do that was not shaking. 14, the girl said, and there was a pause in her voice that Olivia had heard before, from people who were about to be kind about something they should have been silent about. You want a bag? No. It's free. No, thank you. She took the shoes by the laces and turned. The line was 6 people deep. Every one of them looked at the shoes, and then at her face, and then at the wall behind her. In that order. Fast. The way people look away from something they have decided not to see. A woman near the back was already telling her daughter to stop staring. Olivia walked the length of the line with her chin level. Outside, the rain had started. Brooklyn in November. A gray so flat it had no source. Water beating on the plastic awning and dropping through the tear in it in a thin, steady line. She stood under the dry half and put the shoes inside her jacket, against her ribs, and zipped the jacket to the collar. The denim was frayed at both cuffs. It had been her mother's. It kept nothing out anymore except the wind, and it did that badly. Those coins had been the electric bill. Not part of it. It. The jar on top of the fridge with the masking tape label she had written herself in careful block letters, back when writing labels felt like a plan and not a joke. 9 days of skipped lunches and 1 afternoon of returning bottles at the machine on Fulton, with Malik holding the bag open. $14.11. She had 11 cents left. She walked. The shoes made a hard shape against her side, and she pressed her arm over them the whole way. 11 blocks, past the laundromat with the broken dryer nobody had fixed since spring, past the bodega where Hector let people run tabs until Hector's brother took over and stopped letting people run tabs. The rain got into her collar. Her curls took the water the way they always did, drinking it, going heavy, the ends of them sticking to her jacket in dark ropes. She didn't hurry. Hurrying in the rain made you look like a woman who had somewhere better to be. The building on Pruitt's block had a front door that didn't lock, and a lobby that smelled like wet cardboard. Delilah Boone's door was cracked 2 inches on the first floor, the way it was cracked every day. The chain on, the television talking to nobody. "That you, baby?" "It's me, Miss Delilah." The chain slid. The door opened a hand's width. Delilah Boone filled it. Floral housecoat over a cardigan. Glasses swinging on their beaded cord. Silver twists flattened on one side from the chair. "He get home an hour ago," Delilah said. "Ate 2 of my crackers and told me a joke about a horse. Wasn't funny. He tells it wrong. He tells it long." Delilah looked at Olivia's jacket, at the bulge under her arm, at the water running off her jaw. She didn't ask. That was the whole reason Olivia could stand there. Man came by. That man. Olivia's hand stopped on the banister. "Clipboard man," Delilah said. "What'd he want?" "He wanted to be seen wanting something." Delilah's mouth went thin. "Knocked on 4 doors. Wrote on that board. Didn't say a word to me, and I've been here 11 years, and he knocked on my door twice." She reached back into her apartment and came out with a shoebox, held it at chest height like a plate she was carrying to a table. Rubber band around it. Corners soft with handling. 11 years of receipts, baby. Every month. He wants to play, I got the paper. Put it back, Miss Delilah. I'm just showing you it exists. I know it exists. Put it back. Delilah tucked the box under her arm and looked at her a moment longer than was comfortable. Your boy's a good boy, she said, and shut the door. 3 flights. The stairwell light on the second landing had been out since August. Olivia went up in the dark from memory. 12 steps, turn, 12 steps, and her key was already out before she reached the door, because a woman fumbling with keys in a dark hallway is a woman someone watches. Malik was on the floor of the front room with his homework spread across the rug in a shape that made sense only to him. Backpack open, frayed strap looped over his knee. He had his tongue at the corner of his mouth. Mom, listen. Take your jacket off the radiator. It doesn't work. It's just gonna sit there wet. There's this horse. Malik? There's this horse, and he goes into a bar. Shoes. She unzipped the jacket and held them out by the laces. He stopped mid-sentence. He looked at the shoes, and then at her, and then back at the shoes, and his mouth did the thing it did, opening on the gap where his front tooth used to be, and Olivia had to turn toward the kitchen for 1 second, just one, to hang the wet jacket on the chair. Are these? Try them. He had them on his feet before she turned back around. He stood up. He walked 4 steps to the window and 4 steps back. Hard, heel to toe, the way a boy walks when he's testing something for defects. They fit, he said. They didn't. She could see the toe. He had a 1/4 inch, maybe, and he'd have less by February, and he was standing there, lying to her face with his whole heart. They fit, she said. He sat down on the floor and didn't take them off. He pulled his homework back into his lap and went on writing with the shoes on, and Olivia stood in the doorway of her own front room and let herself have 4 seconds of it. Then she went into the kitchen. The fridge hummed. She opened it out of habit and closed it out of habit, and the whole action took less than 2 seconds, because there was nothing in it that required looking at. Half a carton of milk, a jar of grape jelly with the lid on wrong, 6 eggs, which was 3 days, which was fine, because Thursday was the day the church on Gates ran the pantry and Thursday was tomorrow. The table had a placemat on it. Vinyl, faded pattern of lemons, a burn mark near one corner from a pot she'd set down wrong 2 winters ago. Under the placemat, a corner of paper stuck out. She had put it there herself on Monday, not hidden. She wanted to be honest with herself about that, and she was, mostly. Just far enough under that a boy doing homework on the rug wouldn't read the words 30 days through the vinyl. She lifted the corner. She read the first line again, the one she had already memorized, and then she read the number in the box on the right side, the number that had a comma in it, and she set the placemat back down flat and smoothed it with her palm. $3,140. Pruitt had knocked on 4 doors today, not hers. He was saving hers. Mom, what's arrears? She turned. Malik was in the kitchen doorway with his pencil behind his ear, like a man he'd seen somewhere. Where'd you hear that word? Miss Delilah said it. She said, Mr. Pruitt's a snake about arrears. He said the word carefully, in 2 pieces. Is it like a lizard? It's like being late. Late for what? For paying. He thought about that. He came in and pulled out the other chair and sat down across from her with his elbows on the lemons, 6 inches from the eviction notice, and she made herself keep her hands still on the tabletop. Are we late? He asked. She could have said no. It would have cost her nothing tonight and everything in March. Yes, she said. By a lot? By a lot. He nodded slowly. He picked at the burn mark with his thumbnail. Marcus's family got late, he said. They live in Ozone Park now. He got a whole new school. He said the school's got a pool. You want a pool? No. He said it fast. Then, quieter. I want the same school. She reached over and took his hand off the burn mark and held it. His fingers were cold. The radiator in this apartment had been decorative since October, and Walter Pruitt had a work order in a file somewhere with her handwriting on it. Malik, look at me. He looked. There's nothing on this table that's your job, she said. You understand me? Not one thing on it. But if not one thing. He held her eyes. That was the part that got her, always. The boy did not look away when things got heavy. He hadn't gotten that from his father, who had looked away so consistently and so early that Olivia had stopped writing the address down. Okay, he said. She let go of his hand and stood up and got the eggs out because it was 7 and he had to eat something. She cracked 4 into the pan and the sound of it filled the kitchen, and behind her, she heard him take the pencil from behind his ear. There's this horse, he said. He goes into a bar and the bartender says, he stopped. He always stopped here. Wait, no. The horse goes in first, right? Or the bartender's already there. Bartender's already there. He works there. Right, a long pause. Okay, so the horse goes in, and the bartender says, why the long face? That's it? That's it. You cut out the middle. There's no middle. Then that's not a joke, baby. That's a greeting. He laughed so hard he put his forehead on the table. She scraped the eggs onto 2 plates and gave him the bigger one, and he didn't notice, and she ate hers standing at the counter, because if she sat down, he'd count the eggs. Afterward, he washed his own plate because that was the rule. He stood on the crate at the sink with the shoes still on his feet, and she leaned in the doorway watching him, and made a decision she'd already made 100 times and would make 100 more. Come here a second. He came, wet hands. She dried them on the dish towel herself, one at a time. You remember what I told you about Mrs. Kwan's phone? His face changed. 6 weeks ago, the corner store, a phone left on the newspaper rack. Malik had picked it up. Malik had held it for a full block before he told her. I gave it back, he said, defensive. You did, eventually. I gave it back. I'm not fighting with you, Malik. I'm asking what I told you. He looked at the floor, not away from her, down, gathering it, then up. A lost thing still belongs to somebody, he said. Say the rest. Even when nobody's looking, especially when nobody's looking. And what does that mean when your pockets are empty? He hesitated. This was the part they were still working on. It means the same thing, he said. Why? Because... He stopped. He was 8. She waited. She had learned to wait, because the answers he built himself were the only ones that would still be standing when she wasn't in the room. Because being broke isn't a reason, he said. It's just being broke. Olivia put the dish towel down. Yeah, she said. It's just being broke. She kissed the top of his head where the coils were shortest and sent him to brush his teeth, and she stood in the kitchen, listening to the water run, and looked at the placemat with the lemons on it and did not lift it again. At 8:40, someone knocked. Not the polite knock. 3 hits with the flat of the hand, low on the door, the knock of a man who wanted the neighbors to hear the rhythm of it. Malik came out of the bathroom with the toothbrush still in his mouth. Bed, she said. Who is? Bed. He went. She heard his door not close all the way and let it go. She put her eye to the peephole and saw an olive work jacket and a clipboard held at chest height and a face gone blotchy from the walk up. She opened the door 6 inches. Miss Grant? Walter Pruitt had his reading glasses pushed up into what was left of his hair, and his ring of keys hung off the belt loop and jangled every time he shifted. which was constantly. He smiled. The chipped front tooth caught the hall light. Didn't wake the boy, did I? It's 8:40. Long day for me too. He looked past her, into the apartment, at the rug, at the homework, at the chair with the wet jacket on it. He did it slowly, so she'd know he was doing it. You get my paperwork? I got it. Wanted to make sure. Post office and me, we got history. He clicked his pen. He tapped the clipboard twice. Now, I want to say, off the record, off the board, I never liked doing this to a mother. Then don't. Numbers do it, not me. He shrugged with his whole soft body. 3,140. 2,900. His pen stopped. 2,900. Olivia said again. There's a 240 in there from July. That's a late fee on a late fee. You charged me a fee for being late on a fee. Pruitt's smile stayed exactly where it was, which told her more than a change would have. That's the schedule, he said. Show me the schedule. It's in the lease. Which page? The keys jangled. He put his weight on the other foot, and the hallway floor took it and complained. You want to lawyer at me, he said. In a hallway, in your bare feet. Olivia looked down at her own feet. She looked back up. You knocked on 4 doors today, she said. Miss Delilah's, the Ortegas, 4C, and the man on 2 whose name you've never once said right. All of them been here over 8 years. She kept her voice at conversation. You skipped everybody who moved in after 2020. Something went out of Pruitt's face. It went out fast and came back as the smile, but she saw the gap. I go where the ledger sends me, he said. Sure. 30 days, Miss Grant. He clicked the pen again and slid it into the clip. I like you. I want that on the record. There's no record. You said off the board. He was already turning. He got 4 steps down the hall before he stopped, and he said, without looking back, You got people you can call? Good night, Mr. Pruitt. She shut the door. She turned the lock and the second lock and stood with her forehead an inch from the wood until the keys stopped jangling on the stairs. Then she went and sat on the edge of Malik's bed in the dark. He was on his side facing the wall. He was not asleep, she could tell by the shoulders. You heard, she said. No. Malik. I heard some. She put her hand flat on his back. Under her palm, his ribs went up and down too fast. 30 days is a long time, she said. Is it? For me it is. I do a lot in 30 days. He turned over. In the dark, his eyes caught the streetlight from the window, and the window was the reason she had taken this apartment, because it faced east, and the boy woke up in light. Are the shoes why we're late? He asked. The question went into her like a nail. No, she said. You had the jar, on the fridge, and then today. Malik, listen to me. She leaned down until her face was close to his. The jar was $14. Do you know what $14 is against 3,000? It's nothing. It's a raindrop. You could put that jar back on the fridge and we'd still be late. We'd just be late with no shoes on you. He was quiet. So the shoes are free, he said slowly, working it. Kind of. The shoes are the only thing in this house that's mine to decide, she said. That's what they are. He thought about it a long time. Then he said, I'm going to wear them careful. Wear them like you stole them. He laughed, one syllable, into the pillow. That's not the saying, he said. It's my saying. She sat there until his breathing went long and even, and then she sat there 11 more minutes. In the kitchen, she took the jar down off the fridge anyway. She peeled the masking tape off the front of it, slow, so it came away in one piece, and she put the tape in the trash and set the empty jar in the cabinet with the glasses. Then she pulled the placemat aside, folded the notice in half and in half again, and put it in the drawer with the takeout menus from restaurants that had closed. The next morning, the rain hadn't stopped. It had only gotten more organized about it. Olivia walked Malik to the bus at 7:15, and he splashed every puddle on the block in his new navy shoes with the white stripe, deliberately, on purpose, looking back at her each time with his whole face open. Careful, she called. I am being careful. At the corner, he stopped and dug in his backpack and came out with a white envelope, damp at one corner, and held it up like a summons. Almost forgot. It's the trip thing. What trip thing? The museum. Miss Rodriguez says the money's due Friday, but if you can't, you write on the back and she doesn't tell anybody, she just, Give it here. He handed it over. Her name was on the front in a teacher's handwriting. Grant, Malik, permission and fee, $22. Olivia put it in her coat pocket. Are we going? He asked. Get on the bus. Mom, get on the bus, baby. He got on the bus, he took the window seat and pressed his palm flat against the glass, and she pressed her hand up in the air in the rain until the bus turned onto Atlantic and was gone. She stood there for a second with her hand still up. Then she went to work, because Thursday she cleaned 3 units in a building on Dean Street for a management company that paid her in cash on the 15th and had never once paid on the 15th. And at 4, she picked Malik up from Delilah's, and at 4:20, the two of them were crossing the flooded parking lot behind the mall on Flatbush because the pantry at the church on Gates had run out of everything but rice at 2 in the afternoon, and the discount grocery on the far side of the lot marked down its bread at 5. The lot was a lake with a slope. Water moved across it in sheets toward the drain in the corner, and the drain had been clogged since the spring, and nobody had come. Malik walked the white lines like a balance beam. Get out of the water. The lines are dry. The lines are underwater, Malik. That's the hole. 3 cars away, a black sedan pulled in and stopped where it wanted to stop, across 2 spaces, and the doors opened. 2 men got out of the front, black suits, no umbrellas for themselves. One of them had a scar splitting his left eyebrow, white, thin. The other opened a black umbrella and carried it around to the rear door and held it there in the rain over an empty patch of air until the 3rd man stepped out into it. Tall. Black overcoat over a black suit, white shirt, no tie. Something on the right side of his neck, dark ink, running up from the collar toward the jaw, and the rain ran over it and the ink didn't care. He didn't look at the water. He walked through it like the water was a rumor. Olivia put her hand on Malik's shoulder and turned him a quarter turn, toward the store, away, the reflex of a woman who had lived in this borough her entire life and knew exactly how much of anything was none of hers. Walk, she said. Mom, that guy's gotta… Walk. They walked. 20 feet. The men were behind them now, moving the other way, toward the mall doors, and Olivia had her hand between Malik's shoulder blades and was already thinking about bread, about whether the marked-down rack would have the seeded loaf, about $22 for a museum, about what a woman writes on the back of an envelope so a teacher won't tell anybody. Malik stopped dead. Mom. Baby, move. Mom. He was looking back over his shoulder, and his arm came up, and his finger pointed at the sheet of moving water behind them. Something fell. Olivia turned. 20 feet back, half floating, half sinking in 3 inches of rainwater at the base of a parked car, was a black leather wallet. The tall man was still walking. He hadn't slowed. He was 15 feet from the mall doors, and the umbrella was still over him, and neither of the men in front had turned their heads, and the wallet sat there in the water going darker by the second, and there was not one other person in the entire parking lot. Olivia's hand closed on Malik's hood. She got the fabric, she did not get the boy. He was already gone. 3 steps, 4, splashing, both feet in the water, running flat out across that lot with his backpack banging on his spine, and the wallet held up over his head in one fist like a thing on fire. Sir! Sire! The tall man stopped. He turned around, and the 2 men in black suits turned with him, and every one of them was looking at an 8-year-old boy, standing alone in a foot of moving water, soaked to the collar, holding a stranger's money up in the rain. Malik stopped 6 feet short of the man and held the wallet out with both hands, the way you hand someone something breakable. Water ran off his chin. His backpack had slid to one side and hung crooked off his shoulder, and he let it hang, because both his hands were busy. You dropped this, sir. Seo Min-jae moved first. He came off the curb in 1 step and put his body between the boy and Tae-jun, and his right hand went inside his jacket and stayed there, flat, without drawing anything. His eyes went past Malik. He was reading the parking lot, the cars, the roofline of the mall, the mouth of the alley behind the loading bays, the woman running through the water 40 feet back. He was looking for the second person. There is always a second person. He's 8, Olivia said. She said it loud, from too far away, and her voice cracked at the end of it in a way she would think about later. She was still running. Her sneakers were gone under the water at every step, and each step made a sound like a hand slapping a table. Park Jung-ho angled the umbrella. He kept it over Taejun's head, and the rain came down on his own shoulders and soaked through, and he adjusted nothing about his face. Taejun raised 2 fingers. Min-jae stopped where he was. His hand came out of his jacket empty and settled at his side. He shifted half a step to the left so he was no longer a wall, only a shadow, and the boy's path to the man in the black overcoat opened up again. "Come," Taejun said. Malik went. He splashed the last 6 feet and stood in front of him and held the wallet higher, because the man was 1.5 feet taller than his mother, and the boy had to lift his arms to get it near his chest. Taejun took it. Olivia arrived. She got her hand on the collar of Malik's jacket, the real collar this time, the boy inside it, and she pulled him back against her legs and put her body in front of his and kept her hand there. She was breathing hard. Rain ran down her face and she blinked it out of her eyes and looked up at the man and did not look away. "He's returning it," she said. "That's all. He's returning it." Taejun looked at her for 2 seconds. Then he looked down at the wallet in his hands. He opened it. He did it slowly, with his back half turned to the mall doors and his shoulders squared, and Olivia understood, with a coldness that went through her faster than the rain had, that he was not being careful of the weather. He was being careful of the count. He was going to count it in front of her. The cash was in the fold. He ran his thumb across the top edge of it, once, the way a man checks a deck of cards without pulling one. Hundreds. She saw the corner of the top bill and stopped letting herself look. The cards were in the slots. He touched them with 1 finger. He was not reading the names. He was counting the thickness. Then he opened the back flap. There was a photograph in there. Olivia saw the edge of it, white and soft and worn round at the corners, and she saw the man's hands slow down. It was the only thing in the whole 2 minutes his hands did differently. He pressed the photograph flat with his thumb, against the leather, as if the rain might have gotten in, and it hadn't, and he held it there a beat longer than the money got. Behind the photograph there was a key. It was small, flat, dull metal, no teeth like a house key, no plastic head. It sat in the slot behind the picture, and it made no sound, and it was worth, Olivia would learn much later, more than everything else in the wallet and everything in her apartment combined. His thumb touched the key. His whole body changed. It was nothing you could point at. His shoulders stayed where they were, and his face stayed where it was, and the umbrella did not move an inch. But Min-jae saw it and stepped in half a foot, and Jung-ho's grip on the umbrella handle went white across the knuckles, and both of them were suddenly reading the parking lot again, the cars, the roofline, the alley. Olivia saw the 2 men change, and she did not know why, and she pulled Malik tighter against her leg. Olivia had been in enough rooms to know when the temperature moved. She had cleaned apartments where the husband came home early. She had stood at a counter, while a manager looked at a 20 and then looked at her. She knew the exact second a situation stopped being about the thing everybody was pretending it was about, and this was that second, and it had nothing to do with the money. It was the little flat piece of metal. She started measuring the distance to the mall doors, 40 feet, 2 men between her and them, and one of those men had his weight on the balls of his feet. Behind her was the alley and the loading bays and no light. She adjusted her grip on Malik's jacket so she had cloth and shoulder both. Taejun closed the wallet. "Nothing is missing," he said. He said it to Min-jae, in English, and Olivia understood that it was English on purpose, and that it was for her. Min-jae's jaw moved. "Sir, nothing is missing." The younger man went quiet. Taejun crouched. He went down on 1 knee, in the water, in a coat that cost more than 11 months of Olivia's rent, and the water came up over the hem of it, and up the leg of his trousers, and turned the black to a blacker black, and he put himself at Malik's height and stayed there. Olivia's hand tightened on her son's jacket. "What's your name?" Taejun said. Malik looked up at his mother first. That was the thing Taejun noticed. The boy had run across a flooded parking lot at 3 men in black suits without asking anybody, and now, for a question, he checked with his mother. Olivia said nothing. Her hand stayed on him. "Malik," the boy said. "Malik," Taejun said it once, quietly, "the way you set something down on a shelf you intend to come back to. How long did you have this in your hand, Malik?" Malik's mouth opened. He thought about it. He was 8 and he thought the question was about arithmetic. From over there, he said, and pointed at the car, 20 feet back, where the wallet had been floating. To here. How long? I don't have a watch. Something happened at the corner of the man's mouth. It was not a smile. It was in the same neighborhood as one. 4 minutes, Min-jae said flatly, from behind him. Maybe less. Tae-jun did not turn around. He kept his eyes on the boy. There's money in here, he said. I know, Milik said. I saw it when it opened in the water. How much? A lot. Why is it still in here? And Olivia felt her son's shoulders come up under her hand, and she knew what he was going to say before he said it, and there was a half-second where she wanted to put her hand over his mouth, because in her experience nothing good had ever come of a black child in Brooklyn explaining himself to a strange man who had money in his coat. Malik said it anyway. A lost thing still belongs to somebody. The rain came down. Even when nobody's looking, Malik said. Especially when nobody's looking. Tae-jun's eyes came up off the boy and went to Olivia. And they stayed there, and Olivia, who had spent her whole life being looked at in exactly 2 ways, through or past, got looked at a 3rd way and had no file for it. Did you teach him that? He said. She lifted her chin. Yes. When? Since he could talk. Why? She almost laughed. It came out as a breath. Because somebody's always going to say he took it, she said. So he'd better never take it. Nobody said anything for a second. Jung-ho shifted the umbrella a half-inch to cover the man's head and shoulder as he knelt, and the rain got Jung-ho's whole back, and Jung-ho let it. Tae-jun stood up. He came up out of the water in one motion, and the wet ran off his coat, and his knee was soaked black to the shin, and he did not look at it. He reached into the wallet and pulled out the fold of cash. All of it. He did not count what he took out. He took out everything. Olivia knew what was coming, and something went hard behind her sternum. He held it out to Malik. Take it, he said. Malik looked at it. It was more money than the boy had ever seen. It was more money than had ever been in the apartment on the 3rd floor, in 8 years, all at once, in total. It was $3,140, and a lot of change more than that, held out in a stranger's hand in the rain, 12 inches from an 8-year-old's face. Malik put his hands behind his back. He did it fast. He did it the way you pull your hand off a stove. He put both hands behind his back and gripped one wrist with the other, and stood there with his elbows out and his chin down, and he shook his head. No thank you, he said. Tae-jun stood very still. It's a reward, he said. It's not charity. You did work. You get paid. I didn't do work, Malik said. I just walked. You ran. I just ran, then. Min-jae made a sound. It was small, and it might have been a cough, and it was, in fact, the closest thing to a laugh that man had produced in 11 months, and Tae-jun heard it and let it go. He crouched again, all the way down again, in the water, holding out the money. Malik, he said, look at your shoes. The boy looked down. Everybody looked down. The clearance sneakers were under 2 inches of brown water, navy blue with a white stripe, and the water had already gotten inside them and gone up the sock line, and even underwater you could see they were a 1/4 inch too long at the toe. They're new, Malik said, and there was pride in it. There was so much pride in it that Olivia had to look at the mall doors for a second. Take the money, Tae-jun said, and your mother buys you shoes that fit. And Malik Grant, 8 years old, missing a front tooth, standing in a flooded parking lot behind a mall on Flatbush Avenue, said, She already bought me these. Olivia stopped looking at the mall doors. She saved up, Malik said. It took her 9 days. He said it like a fact about the weather. He said it without the faintest idea that he had just opened his mother's whole life on the wet concrete in front of 3 armed men, and Olivia's face did something it had not done in front of Pruitt, and did not do in front of the 6 people in the line at the register, and she pulled it back in under a second flat. Malik, she said. What? It did? Malik? Tae-jun's eyes had come up again. 9 days. He did not put that together with the sneakers being wrong at the toe, out loud. He did not say anything at all for 3 full seconds, and Olivia watched him not say it, and understood that he had done the arithmetic and had decided, for reasons she did not have, to keep the answer to himself. He stood up for the second time. "Ma'am," he said. "No," Olivia said. "You don't know what I was going to say. You were going to hand it to me instead of him." The rain filled the pause. "Yes," he said. "Then no." He turned the money in his hand once and looked at it, and it was the first time in the entire encounter that anything in his manner looked like a man who had lost a step and was hunting for the next one. He was 36 years old. He had been told no by governors and by 2 federal prosecutors, and by a man in Incheon who had, 1 week later, changed his answer. He had not been told no by a woman standing in a puddle in a denim jacket, holding a child by the coat, with rainwater running off her jawline, in a tone that closed the subject. "It's 4 minutes of his time," Taejun said. "It cost me nothing." "That's the part," Olivia said. "Explain that." "It cost you nothing." She wiped her face with the back of her wrist, and it did nothing, because her wrist was wet too. "It costs him everything. You hand him $3,000 for being honest, and by Friday he's figured out that honest pays. And then someday nobody's paying, and what's he got?" Taejun looked at her. "He's got a habit," she said. "I'm building him a habit. Don't put money in it." Young-ho's eyes moved, just his eyes, to the side of his boss's face, and then went back to the roofline. "You need it," Taejun said. "You don't know what I need. I know you counted 9 days." He counted 9 days. Her voice went up and she pulled it back down, and it came out lower and worse. "He counted. That's my point. He shouldn't be counting anything. That's not his job." There was a long beat. Then Taejun folded the cash. He did it in one hand, thumb over the fold, and put it back in the wallet, and put the wallet in the inside pocket of his coat, the left one, the deep one, the one that buttons, and he pressed the flap of the pocket down with 2 fingers and held it there a second, checking it, the way a man does when he has recently learned that this particular coat cannot be trusted. Olivia noticed that. She would not know why she noticed it for another 11 days. "What's your name?" he said to her. "Why?" "Because your son gave me his." "My son's 8. He waited. She had already lost this, and she knew it. The parking lot was empty, and the light was going, and there were 3 men in suits between her and the only exit that made any sense, and there was nothing in her hand except a boy's collar. "Olivia," she said. "Olivia, that's all you get." "That's enough," he said. And that, she would think later, much later, in a kitchen, with a case of money on her table. That was the sentence she should have run from. He turned to go. He got 2 steps, then he stopped, and turned back, and looked at Malik one more time, and for a second, the man in the black overcoat looked like nothing in particular, like somebody's uncle, like a tired man at a bus stop. "Malik." The boy looked up. "Thank you," Taejun said. He said it flat and short, and then he walked to the sedan, and Jung-ho went with him with the umbrella, and Min-jae stood where he was for 1 extra second, looking at the woman and the child, before he followed. The doors shut. The engine turned over. The sedan pulled out across 2 spaces, and its tires threw water up onto the concrete divider, and it turned onto Flatbush, and was gone in the traffic, and the parking lot was just a parking lot again, with a blocked drain and 1 working light. Olivia let go of her son's jacket. Her hand was shaking. She put it in her pocket so he wouldn't see it, and in the pocket, her fingers touched the school envelope, and she took her hand out of the pocket. "Mom, don't." "But Mom." "Malik Grant." She turned him around by the shoulders and crouched down herself, in the water, and got her face level with his. And his eyes were huge and he was still glowing. He was still lit all the way up with it, and she wanted to shake him, and she wanted to put him inside her ribs where nobody could reach him. "You ran at 3 men, you don't know." He dropped it. "You don't know who he is." He dropped it, Malik said, and his chin came out, and it was her chin, exactly her chin, and she hated it. You said it belongs to somebody." Olivia opened her mouth. She closed it. The rain went on hitting the water. There was no answer. There was not one single answer available to her, in that parking lot, on that Thursday, and she had built the thing herself out of 6 weeks and a stolen phone and a woman named Kwan, and now it had run across 40 feet of standing water at a man with a tattoo up his neck, and she could not take 1 word of it back without taking all of it back. "Yeah," she said, "I did say that." "So, So next time you tell me first. Her voice broke in the middle. She got it back. You point. You say mom, and you point, and I go. Not you, me. That's the deal. Okay? Say it. I say mom and I point. And you go. Right. She got her hand on the back of his neck and pressed her forehead against his forehead for 1 second, and both of them were freezing, and neither of them said anything about it. Right. She stood up. Her knees were soaked. Her jacket weighed twice what it should have. The bread got remarked at 5 and it was, by the clock over the mall doors, 4:31. Bag, she said. Malik pulled his backpack around to the front and got the zipper. She wanted his homework off the top of the pile before the water got any further in, and she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the white envelope. Grant, Malik, permission and fee. Because if she was putting his folder in the dry pocket, she might as well put the whole business in there together and stop carrying it around against her chest like a diagnosis. She held it out to him. Put that in the front pocket, she said, the zip one. He took it with wet fingers. He got the front pocket half open, and the strap swung, and the backpack was heavy and crooked, and the boy was tired and cold and ate, and the envelope went out of his hand. It went edge first. It landed flat in a half-inch of running water on the concrete, 6 feet from where his mother was standing, and it lay there and started to go gray and soft. Malik. Sorry. Leave it. She was already reaching for it, and then she stopped reaching for it, because it was wet through and the ink was already going, and it was a $22 field trip she had no $22 for, and it was, if she was honest, a relief. Leave it, baby. It's done. But the trip, I said it's done. She took his hand. They walked. She went across the lot the long way, along the divider where the water was shallow, and she was thinking about bread, about the 4:31 on the clock, and the bread at 5, and whether the man behind the counter would do the day-old rack early if she asked. And she was thinking about a folded fold of hundreds going back into a coat pocket, and about a grown man in a good coat putting his knee down in a puddle, and she was thinking that whatever that was, it was over. They went in through the mall doors. The warm air hit them, and Malik shivered violently and laughed about it. The discount market was at the back, past the shuttered phone kiosk. The bread rack sat by the register, and the man behind it, whose name she had never learned in 4 years, was already peeling the orange stickers off a sheet and reading the clock. 4:50, Olivia said. 5. It's raining. He looked at the boy. The boy was standing in a spreading puddle of his own, dripping onto the mat, grinning at him with the gap in his teeth like the two of them were old friends, which, in a way that neither of them had ever discussed, they were. The man peeled a sticker and put it on a bag of rolls and set it on the counter. 5, he said. Is 5. That one's yesterday's. How much is yesterday's? Yesterday's is $1. Olivia found $1. She found it in the small pocket of her jeans, folded into a square from being folded a long time, and she put it flat on the counter and smoothed it out with 2 fingers so it would go in the drawer without argument. Thank you, she said. The man said, and looked back at the clock. Malik carried the rolls. He carried them out through the doors with both arms around the bag like it was a baby, and Olivia watched him do it, and she thought about a fold of $100 bills going back into a coat, and she felt something she had no name for and had no time for, and she put it away. They walked home the long way, up Flatbush, because the short way went under the scaffolding, and the scaffolding leaked worse than the sky did. 11 blocks. Malik talked for all 11 of them, about the water, about how deep it was by the drain, about how the man had a tattoo and it went up his neck and did she see it, and Olivia said and thought about the 2 men who had stopped looking at her son the instant their boss touched a piece of metal the size of a stick of gum. Mom. Yeah. Was that okay? What I did? She stopped walking. On the sidewalk, in the rain, with a bag of yesterday's rolls between them. Yes, she said. It was okay. And it was true, and it was the most expensive true thing she ever said, and neither one of them had any idea yet. The envelope stayed on the concrete. The rain came down on it for 40 minutes. Then a black sedan came back into the parking lot behind the mall on Flatbush Avenue, with its lights off, and stopped across the 2 spaces it had used before. Seo Min-jae got out alone. He walked to the car where the wallet had been floating. He stood there and turned in a slow circle and looked at the roofline, and the loading bays, and the alley, and the light pole, and the drain. The drain most of all, for a long moment. And then he walked the path the boy had run, in reverse, step by step, with his eyes down. 6 feet from where a woman had crouched in the water with her son, he stopped. He crouched. He picked up a wet white envelope by one corner and turned it over and read the front of it. Grant, Malik. And under that, in the box where the school prints it so the office knows where to send the trouble, a name, an apartment number, a street. Min-jae stood there in the rain for a moment with it in his hand. Then he took out his phone. Olivia stuffed the sneakers with newspaper before she took off her own coat. She worked fast, on her knees by the radiator that had been cold since October, tearing pages out of a free paper somebody had left in the lobby, and balling them and pushing them down into the toes with 2 fingers. Wet leather dries crooked. Wet leather dries small. 9 days sat in those shoes and she was not going to let a rainstorm take them back. Malik stood over her with the bread bag still in both arms. Put it on the counter, baby. He put it on the counter, then he came back and stood over her again. Are they ruined? They're not ruined. They feel like they're ruined. They feel like they're wet. That's a different thing. She pressed the last ball of paper into the left toe and set both shoes on their sides where the pipe would have been warm if the pipe had been anything. Socks off, both. He peeled them off and dropped them in a wet knot on the floor, and she picked the knot up without a word and carried it to the sink. The apartment smelled like rain and old bread. She hung her coat over the door of the bathroom, where it dripped onto the tile instead of the rug, and she stood there a second with her hand still on the shoulder of it, feeling the pocket. Empty. She'd known it was empty. She checked anyway, the way you check a pocket you already emptied yourself, and then she made herself stop. $22 was gone. The envelope was gone. Friday was in 2 days, and Friday would come, and Miss Rodriguez would put a check mark, or not put a check mark, and the museum bus would leave with a seat on it. She went and warmed up the last of the eggs. Malik ate at the table in dry sweatpants with his knees pulled up. He talked the whole time. He talked about the man's coat and how the man knelt down in the water in the coat, twice, and how the water must have gone right through it. He talked about the security men. He gave them names, the scar one and the umbrella one, and reported that the umbrella one never once put the umbrella over himself, which he found personally outrageous. That's his job, Olivia said. It's a bad job. Most of them are. He chewed. He thought about it. Mom, was he a boss of something? She had her back to him, running water over the pan. Eat your eggs. That's a yes. That's an eat your eggs. At 8 o'clock she made him get in the bath, and she stood in the kitchen while the water ran and looked at the 2 shoes drying on their sides by a dead radiator, and she thought about a man's thumb slowing down over a photograph. That was the part that stayed with her, not the money. The money had been theater, the whole thick fold of it out in the open in the rain like it weighed nothing. Because to him, it weighed nothing. The photograph had weighed something. The little flat key behind it had weighed something. And when his thumb touched that key, 2 grown men, who had not moved for the money, moved for the key. She dried her hands. She had made a decision in the parking lot without noticing she was making it. The decision was, forget him. Men like that pass through a poor neighborhood the way weather passes through it. You get wet, you go inside, you dry your shoes. Malik yelled from the bathroom that the water was going cold, and she yelled back that it was going cold everywhere, and he laughed, and that was 8:15. 9 blocks south, the sedan idled at a red light with the wipers on their slowest setting. Min-jae read the address off his phone in Korean. He read it twice, the second time slower, because the ink on the envelope had run, and he wanted to be sure about the apartment number. Taejun sat with the wallet in his left hand. He had not put it back in the coat. He had held it since the parking lot, on his knee, the way you hold something you're deciding about. You want me to send someone tomorrow, Min-jae said. It came out as a question by half a degree. No. Jung-ho's eyes came up in the mirror. Sir, at this hour, drive. The light changed. Nobody said anything for 11 blocks. What Taejun was doing behind his face was arithmetic. 9 days for a $14 pair of shoes meant $1 and change a day, which meant she was subtracting the dollar and change from something, and there is only one place in a house like that to subtract from. He had eaten in rooms where a single bottle cost more than 9 days of her. That was not the part that moved him, and he would not have called it moving anyway. The part was this. She had that arithmetic in her hands, and she had put both hands behind her back, twice, the way her son did. Nobody had told her no was free. She had paid for it anyway. He looked out the window at a laundromat closing, at a man dragging a grate down over a chicken place, at 4 blocks of a life he had spent 20 years arranging not to touch, and he decided he was going to fix her. He would think about that verb later. Fix. He would think about it for a long time. The knock came at 8:40, 3 of them, evenly spaced, at the exact center of the door. Olivia was in the hall with a towel and Malik's head under it. She stopped. Malik came out from under the towel with his hair standing every direction. Pruitt knocked with the flat of his hand, and Pruitt knocked like a man announcing weather. This was not that. This was somebody who had knocked on doors that opened. Bathroom, she said. Mom. Bathroom. Now. He went 2 steps and stopped in the hallway, which is what an 8-year-old means by bathroom. She put her eye to the peephole, and the peephole gave her a black shape that filled the whole circle, and then it gave her a face. Her hand went to the chain before she could think about whether the chain meant anything. It did not mean anything. She put it on anyway. Then she pulled the door in 8 inches and let the chain catch it. Han Tae-jun stood in the hallway of a walk-up on the 3rd floor of a building where the 2nd floor light had been out since August. The 2 of them were behind him, one on each side of the corridor, and neither had a hand anywhere near a pocket, which she understood was a decision somebody had made on the stairs. His overcoat was wet at the shoulders. The knees were dark. He hadn't changed. "Ms. Grant," he said. She felt her son come up behind her hip, and she put her arm back and moved him. "How do you have my address?" He didn't answer with words. He raised his right hand, unhurried, so she could watch it come up and see it was empty except for what was in it. The school envelope. It was still soaked through. It had gone gray in the water and the flap had come unglued, and the printed line on the front had bled sideways, and she could still read it from 8 inches of doorway because she'd read it that morning on the corner with her son's hand in hers. Grant, Malik, permission and fee. Under it, in the box the school prints for the school's own convenience, her name, her apartment number, her street. Olivia looked at the envelope for 3 full seconds. Then she looked at the man. "You went back for it." "My man went back for it." "After you left. 40 minutes after, maybe." "Yes." "Why?" "Because it was on the ground," Taejun said, "and it had your name on it, and I intended to use it." She had expected a lie. She had been braced for the lie. She had the shape of it already in her mouth so she could step on it. He put the truth on the doormat instead, and it took the floor out from under her, and he watched her lose her balance and gave her the time to find it. "That's my son's mail," she said. "It's yours. It says your name. It's his trip." Something happened in his face. Small, he turned the envelope over once, the way he'd turned the wallet in the rain, and he read the back of it, where the teacher had written, in the round handwriting of a woman who has done this many times and hates doing it, that a parent who cannot pay may write here. Nothing was written there. He lowered his hand. "May I come in?" "No. Ms. Grant, you're standing in my hallway at 8:40 at night with 2 men, and my son is behind me in pajamas, and you're asking me to open my door wider." She kept her voice down. That was the thing she'd remember about herself. Later, she kept her voice down. "For the neighbors, for Delilah, for the boy. Give me one reason that's not a threat. Because if I stay in the hallway, they stay in the hallway," Taejun said. "And I would rather your neighbors not see them." Downstairs on the 1st floor, Delilah Boone's door was open 4 inches on its chain, and had been open 4 inches on its chain since the second man came up the stairs, and Delilah's hand was on her cordless phone. Olivia looked past him at the 2 of them, at the corridor, at the dead bulb over the stairwell. Then she shut the door in his face. She stood with her forehead almost touching the wood, and she counted 3, and she heard nothing on the other side. No knock, no voice, nothing. She slid the chain. She opened the door. "Just you," she said. "They stay out there, and the door stays open. Thank you. Don't do that." Taejun said something over his shoulder in Korean. 4 words. And neither man moved a muscle in his face, and both of them turned to the corridor wall and became furniture. He stepped in. He was too big for the room the second he was inside it. The ceiling was low, and the hall was narrow, and his shoulders took up most of the width of it, and Olivia found herself backing up out of the entry into the kitchen just to keep space between them, which meant she had led him where she didn't want him, and she knew it as she did it. Malik was standing on the far side of the table in bare feet. "Hi," Malik said. Taejun stopped. "Hello, Malik. You're wet again." "Yes. Your coat's gonna dry weird." "Probably. You should put paper in it," Malik said, with total confidence, and pointed at the 2 sneakers lying on their sides by the radiator, with newspaper crammed in the toes. "That's what my mom does." Taejun looked at the shoes. He looked at them for 1 second longer than a person looks at shoes. Olivia stepped into the line of sight. "Say what you came to say." He turned and lifted a case up onto the table. She had not seen it. He'd carried it flat against his leg on the side away from the door, and it came up onto the placemat with the burn mark on it and made almost no sound at all, and it sat there, black, hard-sided, 2 clasps, the corners bright metal. The room got very small. "Open it," he said. "No." "Then I'll open it." He thumbed both clasps at once. They went off like 2 knuckles cracking. Money. It was banded. It was in rows. It sat in the case the way tools sit in a case, each one in its place, and the light of the kitchen bulb went across the top of it, and Olivia felt her whole body take 1 step back without her permission. Malik came around the table to look, and she caught the back of his shirt and hauled him behind her, and he stayed there. Nobody said anything. The refrigerator hummed. It was the loudest thing in Brooklyn. "What is that?" she said. "Payment." "For what?" "For what he did." Taejun's voice stayed level. "The wallet has value," he returned it. "That is a service. This is what the service is worth to me. You already tried this in a parking lot. In the parking lot I offered you a reward, and you told me I was putting money in a habit." He said it back to her almost exactly, the way a man repeats a thing he's been carrying around in his head for 4 hours. "So I am not paying the boy, I am paying you. It goes to the household. He never touches it. He never knows the number." He turned the case a degree toward her, like a man sliding a document across a desk. "That's the version you can accept." And this was the trap, and it was beautifully made, and Olivia stood in her own kitchen, in a dry t-shirt, and looked straight down the middle of it. Because he was right that it was the version she could accept. Because $3,140 was sitting on her placemat about 9 times over. Because 2 days from now was Friday. "Get it off my table," she said. Taejun didn't move. "Miss Grant, you don't know how much." "I don't want to know how much." Her hand was still behind her on her son's collarbone, and she could feel his heart going. "That's the whole point. You put a number on it, and I'll spend the rest of my life doing math on the worst day of my life. Get it off my table." "It's not charity. You keep saying that like it's the thing I'm scared of." He stopped. "My son's honesty isn't for sale," Olivia said. "Not to you, not for that, not for 10 of those." The refrigerator hummed. Then Malik, who had been behind his mother's leg for 90 seconds, which is roughly the storage capacity of an 8-year-old, leaned out from behind her and said, "Do you want milk?" Olivia said, "Malik?" He had already crossed the kitchen. He was already up on his toes with his hand on the handle, because he had been raised in a house where a guest gets offered something, because that was a rule his mother made and enforced, and here was a guest. He opened the refrigerator door. The light came on inside it and went out across the linoleum, and Han Tae-jun looked into a refrigerator that had a half quart of milk on the top shelf, a jar of grape jelly, and 6 eggs. Nothing else. Not a thing, not a wilted head of lettuce, not a takeout container, not a bottle of anything. The shelves were clean. They were so clean. Malik held the milk up with both hands, and the carton was light enough that his arms went up too fast. "There's like a cup left," he reported. Olivia crossed the kitchen and took the carton out of her son's hands and put it back and closed the door, and her face did not do anything at all, and it did not do anything at all so hard that it was worse than if it had. "Bed," she said. It's not even bed. He went slowly, the way you go when you know you did something and you can't find it. At the mouth of the hall, he stopped and turned around and said, "Bye." And Taejun said, "Good night, Malik." And then the door clicked, and there were two adults in the kitchen and a case of money on the table between them. Taejun looked at the closed refrigerator. 6 eggs, he said. Don't. How many days? Don't do that. 3, he said. You said 3 days at the boys' school? No. You didn't say anything. You wouldn't have. He turned his head and looked at her, and for the first time all night there was something under the flatness of him, and it was not pity, which she could have thrown out of her house, and that was the problem. You bought shoes. Get out. I'm going to. He reached into his coat. She flinched. She hated that. She'd hate it for weeks. And what came out was a pen. I need something to write on, he said. She should have said no. She would examine that later too, from every angle, for a long time. She turned and yanked open the drawer under the counter, the junk drawer, the one with the menus in it from 4 restaurants that had all closed, because that's where the pens were. The eviction notice was on top. She had folded it in half that night and put it under the menus, and it had not stayed under the menus, because paper doesn't stay where you put it in a drawer that opens twice a day, and it had come up through the stack the way that kind of paper always does. Folded, facing up. The letterhead of the management company across the top of the fold in blue. Olivia's hand stopped over the drawer for a fraction of a second. That was all. A fraction. She got the pen and pushed the drawer shut with her hip in one motion, and it was smooth, and it was fast, and it was completely useless, because Han Tae-jun had read it upside down in the time it took her to reach. He had been reading documents upside down across tables since he was 19 years old. He said nothing about it. He took the pen from her. He clicked it once. He wrote nothing. 30 days, he said. The kitchen went silent in a new way. $3,140, Taejun said. Blue letterhead. Pruitt Property Group, dated the 3rd. Get out of my house. You counted coins for shoes, he said. And there is a 30-day notice in your kitchen drawer, and there is nothing in your refrigerator, and your son ran a fold of hundreds back to a stranger in a parking lot 4 hours ago, because you taught him to. I said get out. Then take the money. No. It came out of her at full volume for the first time all night, and it cracked the room open. And down the hall a bed creaked, and Olivia shut her eyes for 1 second and brought it back down. You listen to me, she said, quiet again, quieter than before. That notice has been in that drawer since last night. It'll be in that drawer tomorrow. It has nothing to do with you, and it has nothing to do with what he did in that parking lot. And the second I let you put those two things in the same room, my son grows up knowing that his mother's rent got paid because he was honest one time in front of the right man. He'd be wrong? He'd be right. She hit the table with the flat of her hand and the case jumped. That's what's wrong with it. Taejun looked at her. And this is where it turned, and neither of them clocked it at the time. He was not angry. He had been contradicted twice in one day by the same woman, in a parking lot and in a kitchen, and the thing in his chest was not the thing that usually arrived. He stood in a room with a dead radiator and a burn-marked placemat, and he had the sensation, faint and unpleasant and entirely new, of being the poorer person in it. He clicked the pen and put it on the table. Keep the case, he said. You'll change your mind by Friday. He turned and walked out of the kitchen. He got 4 steps down the hall. Behind him, he heard both clasps go shut. She came down the stairs after him with the case in both arms. 3 flights. She was in bare feet and a t-shirt, and it was 41 degrees and it was raining, and the case weighed what it weighed, and she went down the first flight fast, past the second-floor landing where the bulb had been out since August, into the dark part where she knew every step by the sound. She heard Delilah's door. She didn't stop. Baby. Watch my kid for 2 minutes, Miss Delilah. The lobby door banged. Rain hit her like a hand. The sedan was at the curb with the engine running and the wipers going, and Jung-ho was holding the rear door, and Taejun was halfway into it, and the two of them turned at the sound of a barefoot woman coming down the stoop in November with their boss's case in her arms. Min-jae came off the wall of the building fast. Taejun raised 2 fingers without looking. Min-jae stopped. Olivia came around the trunk of the car and up to the rear door, and the window was already going down, because he'd already pressed the button, because he'd known from the sound of the lobby door what was coming across the sidewalk. She looked at him through the gap. Then she pushed the case in through the window. She didn't hand it, she fed it, edge first, into a moving car's window frame, into his lap, and he had to take it or wear it, and he took it, and the case came to rest across the knees of a man in a black overcoat in the back of a car in the rain. "You looked in my refrigerator," Olivia said. Rain ran off her jaw. Her curls were flat and streaming, and she stood in the gutter water with the sidewalk light behind her. "You looked in my drawer. Fine. Look, you want to know how bad it is? It's bad. Write it down." She had one hand on the roof of his car, and the other on the frame of the window, and the metal was cold enough to hurt. "And it's still not for sale." Taejun looked up at her from inside the car. "Nobody has ever brought it back down the stairs," he said. "Then nobody ever should have carried it up." He almost, and it was almost, she never got closer to it than this, he almost smiled. "Your name," Olivia said. The wipers went once. "You've had mine since 4:30 this afternoon," she said. "You had my address by 6. You've been in my kitchen. I've got nothing. I don't even know what to call you when I tell my son who came to the door." He looked at her for a long moment. "Han Tae-jun. Han Tae-jun," she said, and she let it sit there, and it landed in the street between them like a stone in water. "Ms. Grant, don't come back." She let go of the car. She walked up her own steps in the rain in bare feet, and she did not run, and she did not look back, and the lobby door swung shut behind her, and the light in the vestibule showed her wet footprints going up the stairs for about 4 seconds before the door closed on it. The window went up. Nobody in the car said anything for a block and a half. Then Taejun opened the case on his knees, looked at it, closed it, and set it on the seat beside him. "Sir," Min-jae said carefully. "Do we?" "Pruitt Property Group," Taejun said. "Blue letterhead. Find out who holds the paper on that building. Not who manages it, who holds the paper." Min-jae's pen came out. "Tonight?" "Tonight." Jung-ho took the corner onto Atlantic. Taejun watched the wipers and thought about a woman standing in gutter water telling him not to come back, and he understood, with total clarity, that she had meant it. He also understood he was going to. The call came in at 10 past midnight. Min-jae took it in the front seat with a notepad on his knee, said 4 words, listened for a long time, and then turned around. "Sir, the paper on that building's been sold twice in 14 months. Taejun's eyes came open. "To who?" "That's the thing." Min-jae looked at his notes. "It's the same 3 buildings every time. Same seller, same broker, and every one of them is full of people who've lived there more than 8 years. The rain came down on the roof of the car. "Sir," Min-jae said, "somebody's emptying them." Pruitt was already in the lobby when Olivia came down with Malik at 7:20 on Friday morning, and he was holding the clipboard against his chest like a man holding a lid on a pot. He had been waiting. That was the first wrong thing. Pruitt never waited for anybody in that building. "Miss Grant." She kept Malik moving toward the door. The bus turned onto the corner at 7:15 and left at 7:18, and there was no version of this morning where she stopped walking. "Your balance is 0, Pruitt said. Her foot landed on the tile and stayed there. Malik looked up at her. She put her hand flat on his back and pushed him gently toward the door and said, "Go, stand under the awning, baby, where I can see you." He went. He looked back twice. Then she turned around. Pruitt's face was the color it went when he'd been drinking coffee and losing an argument on the phone. The chipped tooth showed. He wasn't smiling with it. He flipped a page on the clipboard and turned it toward her, and his hand was unsteady enough that she had to reach out and hold the bottom corner to read it. $3,140, and under it stamped, in the ugly purple ink of a machine somebody keeps in a back office, paid in full. Dated Thursday. Received at 11:52 p.m. 11:52. She had been asleep on top of the blanket with her jeans still on. "Who paid it?" she said. "That's what I came to ask you." "Ask me." "Somebody paid your rent, Miss Grant." Pruitt's voice climbed at the end of it. "Somebody wired $31.40 into an account, and it cleared before midnight, and there's no name on it. Do you know what that looks like?" It looks like my balance is zero. It looks like somebody's playing games with my building. She let go of the clipboard corner. Your building. He heard it. His jaw shifted. Down the hall, a chain rattled. Delilah Boone's door came open 4 inches and stayed there, and Pruitt turned his head toward the sound and then made himself not look, and Olivia filed that away too. You take the money, Pruitt said. Fine, that's your business. But the 30 days still runs. The lobby went very quiet. Say that again. The notice stands. He tucked the clipboard back under his arm. Payment's a separate matter from the proceeding. You just told me I don't owe you anything. I told you the balance is zero. Olivia stood there in a coat that was still damp from Thursday and did the arithmetic in the 4 seconds she had before the bus, and the arithmetic came out to a shape she had been circling for 2 days without touching. She had thought the 3140 was the gun. It wasn't the gun. It was the noise the gun made. Mr. Pruitt, she said it evenly, if I'd walked in here Monday with 3140 in cash on your desk, would that notice have come off my door? He looked at her. He looked at her for 1 second longer than a man should need for a question with an easy answer, and then he said, Bus is leaving, and walked past her out the door, and the ring of keys jangled the whole way down the steps. She stood in the lobby. Malik banged the window with his palm from under the awning and pointed at the corner, where the yellow nose of the bus was already swinging wide, and she went out and put her hand on the back of his neck and got him across the sidewalk in 11 steps. He stopped with his foot on the bottom stair of the bus. Today's Friday, he said. The envelope, the museum, $22, Miss Rodriguez. Deadline Friday, a bus with 1 empty seat on it Monday morning. I know what day it is, Olivia said. It's okay, Malik said fast, the way he said things when he was getting there before she could. Devon's not going either. His mom said the museum's just old stuff. The museum's not old stuff. I know. He shrugged the backpack higher. I'm just saying what Devon said. The driver looked at them. Go, Olivia said. Sit in the front. He went up the steps. He turned around at the top and got his hand flat against the glass, and she put hers up on the other side of it, and then the bus pulled out, and she stood on the corner, with her hand still in the air like a fool. Then she went back inside and up 3 flights and stood in her kitchen, looking at the lemon placemat with the burn mark on it, and the thing that came out of her was not gratitude. Then she went down to Delilah's. Delilah had the door open before she knocked. You heard. You were listening. Baby, I've been listening since Wednesday. Delilah stepped back, and Olivia came in, and the apartment smelled like coffee, and the little gold cross moved when Delilah breathed. He came to my door too. 6:30 in the morning. That man knocked on my door at 6:30 in the morning. Olivia stopped. Saying what? Saying, was there a Korean gentleman in this building Thursday night? Delilah's kitchen had magnets all over it, church schedules, a photograph of a boy in a graduation gown who had died before Olivia moved in. What did you tell him? I told him I'm 61 years old and I don't see so good at night. Then I told him he ought to fix the light on the 2nd floor before he asks me who I saw on the stairs. Olivia laughed once. It came out of her sideways and surprised them both. Miss Delilah. She put both hands on the back of the kitchen chair. The box. The smile went out of Delilah's face like a switch. You told me to put it away. I know what I told you. 11 years, Olivia. Delilah didn't move toward the closet. Every month, money order stubs stapled to the receipt, and the receipts got his handwriting on it, and I got the ones where he wrote the number and then crossed it out and wrote a bigger one. Olivia lifted her head. He did what? 3 or 4 times. Delilah waved a hand at the wall, at the whole building. Late fee, he says. And then next month, late fee on the late fee, he says. And I'd go, Walter, I paid you on the 3rd, and he'd say the 3rd's not the 1st. You have that, on paper, with the crossing out. I have everything. Delilah's chin came up. I got a receipt from a man who's been dead 9 years. Olivia looked at the closet door for a long moment. Don't give it to anybody, she said. Not to him, not to a lawyer, not to me, not yet. Then what am I keeping it for? For the day somebody makes him explain it. She went back up to 3, and she stood in the middle of her own kitchen with her coat still on, and she got the eviction notice out of the menu drawer and unfolded it and read it for the 9th time, and this time she read the bottom of it. It was there, a gray line of type so small it looked like a decoration. Notice of assignment, account transferred. She had skipped it, because the number at the top had been screaming. There was an entity name on the line, and an address, 57th Street. She went into the bedroom and took out the white button shirt she had worn to her mother's funeral, and put it on with black trousers, and pinned her curls back, and picked up the bag with the strap she'd fixed twice, and she was on the train by 9:40. The lobby had a marble floor you could see the ceiling in. Olivia went straight past 2 glass turnstiles to a desk the length of a car and said to the woman behind it, "I need to see Han Tae-jun." The woman's smile arrived on schedule. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Is he expecting you?" "He came to my apartment Thursday night." Olivia set the eviction notice on the marble. Face up. "He read this off my kitchen table upside down." "Tell him Olivia Grant is in the lobby with the paper he read." The smile stayed exactly where it was, and everything behind it went somewhere else. The woman touched her headset and turned a shoulder and spoke 6 words Olivia couldn't hear. Nobody threw her out. That was the part that got under her skin. She had built the whole train ride around being thrown out. Instead, Min Jae came out of a door beside the elevators, looked at her bag, said, "This way, ma'am," and the glass opened for her by itself. 41 floors. Her ears popped at 19. The doors opened on a floor with no signage on it at all, just a hallway, and light coming from somewhere she couldn't locate, and a smell like nothing, like air that has been paid for. A man was waiting for her. He was shorter than her by an inch, gray suit, off the rack, and a tie knotted so precisely it looked mechanical, and a gold bar across it, rimless glasses, a black leather folder under his arm, held there the way some men hold a folder and some men hold a rifle. He had a smile ready before she was all the way out of the elevator. "Miss Grant," he put his hand out. "Yoon Sang-hoon. I handle Mr. Han's arrangements." She shook it. His palm was dry and soft, and he held on a half-second past the end. "I need to see him." Of course, of course. He was already walking, already turning her down the hall, with a hand hovering an inch off her back without touching it. This must have been a very stressful week. Very stressful. May I say, the child. Extraordinary. Everyone here has heard about the child. Olivia stopped walking. Everyone here. Sang-hoon's step hitched for a quarter of a second. It was nothing. It was less than nothing. Later, she would be able to draw it from memory. "It's a small office," he said, warm as bread. "Please. Sit. There's a form. It's nothing. It's for the accounting. It releases the transfer so no one comes back at you later, and I can have a check cut in 20 minutes for your inconvenience. 20 minutes. Whatever number is fair." He had the folder open on his forearm. There was a page in it. There was a line at the bottom of the page and a small, clean X in pencil beside it. "You've got that already printed," Olivia said. "We're a prepared office. Printed with my name on it this morning. Miss Grant. I'm not signing anything." She put her hands behind her back, and even while she did it, she knew where her son had learned it, and something in her chest turned over. Behind Sang-hoon, at the far end of the hall, a door opened. Tae-jun came out of it in shirt sleeves. No coat, no jacket, sleeves turned back twice. It was the first time she had seen him in a room where he lived, and he looked, if anything, worse for it, like a man who had been up since a car ride ended. He saw her. He stopped. Then he said 4 words in Korean. Sang-hoon closed the folder. The smile stayed on his face the entire way to the elevator, and the entire time the elevator was arriving, and it was still there when the doors shut on it. "You bought my rent," Olivia said. "Come inside." "No, here's fine. Here's where I say it." Her voice was even. That was the thing she was proudest of afterward. "You put money in my life at midnight without asking me. You did the exact thing I stood in the rain and told you no to. You waited till I was asleep. Miss Grant, I carried it down 3 flights. I stood in 41 degrees in my bare feet, and you went around me." He listened to all of it. "Are you finished?" he said. "No." "Then finish. Undo it." She stepped forward. "I want that stamp off. I want that account back exactly the way it was on Wednesday, 3140 in 30 days, and me. I'll take my chances with mine before I'll live on yours." Tae-jun stood there, and something moved across his face that she had absolutely no filing category for. I can't undo it, he said. Yes, you can. You have. She gestured at the hall, at the light, at the air that had been paid for. All this. You can do anything you want. That's the whole point of you. I can't undo it, he said, because I didn't do it. The hallway hummed. Don't, Olivia said. I didn't pay Walter Pruitt. He held her eyes. I have never given Walter Pruitt $1, and I never will. Somebody wired 3140 at 11:52. Somebody did. He turned and walked back through the open door and left it open behind him, and she stood in the hall for 3 full seconds, hating him, and then she followed, because the alternative was standing in a hallway. There was a table. It was long, and it was covered end to end in paper. Not files, paper, spread flat, in rows, 4 and 5 deep, with corners overlapping and pencil in the margins. Somebody had been working on their feet all night. There was a cold cup on the corner of it with a skin on the surface. Do you know what an assignment of debt is? He said. I know what it says on the bottom of my notice. He glanced up at that. You read the bottom. This morning. Nobody reads the bottom. He said it flatly, without triumph, and then he put 2 fingers on a page and slid it across the table to her. At 11:52 last night I bought your arrears. Not the building, not Pruitt, your paper. 3140. It is a legal purchase of a receivable, and it took my lawyer 4 hours, and it is why your balance says 0, because the party you owe it to is no longer him. Olivia looked at the page. It's me, she said. It's me. I owe you 3140. You owe an entity that owes me. He tapped the corner. Yes. She felt the floor do something. She put one hand on the back of a chair and did not sit down. So it's worse, she said. It's not charity, it's a leash. It's a leash, Taejun agreed, that only I can pull, and I'm telling you now, in this room, that it's going in a drawer, and it will die in that drawer. But you don't have to believe that. You shouldn't believe that. You've known me for 38 hours. Then why? Because a man who holds the paper can freeze the proceeding. He said it very quietly, and it took her a second, and then it hit her in the middle of the chest. You froze it. Yours and 95 others. Olivia sat down. She sat down because her legs went, and she was furious with them, and she sat anyway. 95, she said. He slid another page. This one was a table, columns, printed at 3 in the morning by someone in a hurry. She got her finger on the top of a column and made herself read. 3 buildings, he said. Yours on Herkimer, one on Halsey, one on Marcy. Same seller, same broker. Title moved twice in 14 months. My man pulled the fee ledgers at 2 this morning. How do you pull a fee ledger at 2 in the morning? Badly, Taejun said, and with money. She almost laughed. She caught it. Look at the fee codes, he said. There was a column of them. LF2, late fee, and then a second column, and it said LF2A, and there were check marks going down it, and down it, and down it. $240, Olivia said. July. On my July. On 411 Julys, he put his knuckles on the table. Across 3 buildings, over 26 months, Walter Pruitt has charged a penalty on a penalty 906 times. It is not in a single lease. I have read 11 of them. There is no schedule, there is no clause, there is no authority. He invented a number and typed it into a box, and every one of you paid it or fell behind on it. Olivia sat with her hands flat on her knees. I told him, she said, Wednesday night. I stood in my doorway and told him the 240 was a fine on a fine, and I asked him to show me where it says that in my lease. Taejun's head came up slowly. You said that to him. I said it to his face. What did he do? He said 30 days. She looked at the column of check marks, and her voice went somewhere flat and strange. And then he asked me if I had people I could call. Nobody in the room said anything for a moment. Miss Grant. He straightened. I need you to hear the next part standing up, so stand up. I'm fine sitting. Stand up. She stood up. She hated that she did. The eviction was never about your money, Taejun said. The room was very bright. There was a window somewhere behind him with the whole gray sky in it, and she looked at that instead of at his face. Say it plain. He filed on you on the 3rd. He moved a page. He filed on the Ortega family on the 3rd. He filed on 4C on the 3rd. And 4C is 11 months current. They don't owe him a cent, and there is a notice on their door tonight. That's... She stopped. Say it. That's not possible. You can't evict somebody who paid you. You can start a proceeding against anybody, he said. You can lose it in 9 months. And in 9 months they've already gone. Because people like you don't have 9 months. They have a job and a kid, and a landlord with a clipboard. And a family that has been somewhere 11 years will take a moving truck over a courtroom every single time. He is not collecting. He is not even trying to collect. He is clearing. Clearing. Look at the last column. She looked at the last column. Move-in year. And going down it, in Pruitt's own handwriting, a check next to everyone before 2020, and nothing at all next to the rest. Her mouth went dry. I saw it, Olivia said. Wednesday. I saw it, and I said it out loud to him, and I didn't know what I was looking at. You knew what you were looking at. I thought he was picking on the ones who owe. He is picking the ones who cost. Taejun's voice did not go up. A tenant of 11 years pays less than a tenant of 11 months. A building full of 11-year tenants is worth what it collects. A building with nobody in it is worth what the ground is worth. He put one finger on the map at the end of the table. A plain gray plot map, the kind the city gives away. Herkimer, Halsey, Marcy, look at them together. She looked. They made a shape, 3 lots, and the shape they made was a rectangle with a hole in it, and the hole was 2 other lots that had already been sold. Olivia stood over that map for a long time. He's not a landlord, she said. He's a seller who hasn't sold yet. He can't sell it with us in it. He can't sell it with you in it, Taejun said. At the price he's been promised. Her hands were shaking. She noticed that from a distance, the way you notice weather. Promised by who? That, he said, I don't have. You have everything else. I have a broker's name on a deed and a buyer behind a company behind a company. He said it without apology. By Monday I'll have more. Olivia put both hands on the table and leaned on it. And for a second the whole thing tilted. The paper, the fees, the check marks, 30 days, the burn mark on the placemat, her son's hand flat on the window of a school bus. 3140, she said. 2900, Taejun said. You were right. She closed her eyes. Don't, she said. Don't do the part where you tell me I was right. You were right on Wednesday night in a doorway with no lawyer and no ledger and no... He stopped himself, and the sentence he had been about to say hung in the room, and she knew exactly what the missing word was, and so did he. You were right. And it didn't matter. It mattered? He said it hard. It's why he came back. Olivia opened her eyes. What? Wednesday you asked to see the schedule. Taejun tapped the checkmark column. 906 times he's charged this, and nobody has ever asked to see the schedule. Thursday morning he knocked on 4 more doors on that block. Thursday night he was in his office until 9:40. He is not chasing your rent, Miss Grant. He is chasing a hole in his floor, and you're the one who put it there. She stood in the light with her heart going. Then it stays mine, she said. What does? All of it. She pushed off the table. You want to hold my paper in a drawer, hold it. I'll pay you back $100 at a time for the rest of my natural life, and I'll hate every check. But you don't get to walk into my building with your 2 men and fix it for me while I'm asleep. That is not... That's the exact word. She pointed at him. Fix. You've been saying it to yourself since Thursday. I can hear it on you. His mouth closed. It was the first thing she had ever said that landed on him, and she saw it land, and she filed that away too. You have a lawyer at 2 in the morning, Olivia said. You have a badge, you have an elevator with no buttons on it, and with all of that you've got a broker's name and a company behind a company. She picked her bag up off the chair. You know what you don't have? He waited. Receipts, she said. 11 years of them. In a shoebox with a rubber band around it. In the apartment of a woman who has 3 of the ones where he crossed out the number and wrote a bigger one in his own hand. Taejun stood very still. Say that again. His handwriting, Olivia said. Not a code in a computer somebody can say was a glitch. His pen, crossing out a number he already wrote and putting a bigger one next to it. Who has it? She looked at him. She thought about a woman with a chain on the door and a phone in her hand, and a boy in a graduation gown on the refrigerator, who never came home, and she thought about how easy the next sentence would be, and how much it would buy. "That's mine," Olivia said. "That's the part that's mine. Miss Grant, you'll get it." She got the bag onto her shoulder. "When I decide, not at midnight, not while I'm asleep, when I hand it to you across a table with my own 2 hands." Then she walked out. She was 3 steps into the hall before he said her name, and she kept walking, and behind her she heard him say, "To no one," in the tone of a man who has just found the floor missing under a step he has taken 10,000 times. Nobody brings it back down the stairs. The elevator came. It came fast. Somebody had held it. She rode 41 floors with her hands shaking in her coat pockets, and she got out into the marble, and she was almost at the glass when she heard the shoes. Miss Grant, please." Sang-hoon crossed the lobby at a trot with the folder against his ribs, and he arrived slightly out of breath, and the smile was back, and it fit him perfectly. "I'm so glad I caught you," he said. "I was afraid you'd gone." "I've got a train." Of course. 1 second. He was already turning a page. "For the file only. The accounting. You mentioned upstairs. A neighbor. A woman with documentation." Olivia looked at him. Something happened in her stomach that she could not have explained to a court or a friend or her own mother. "I didn't mention anybody," she said. "Ah." Sang-hoon's pen paused above the paper. "Then I misheard. I hear everything through a door. It's a terrible habit." He laughed at himself, small and comfortable. "It's only that if there are documents, we should collect them properly before anything happens to them. Buildings like that, a pipe breaks, a super throws out a box. It happens all the time. Nothing's going to happen to them." No, of course not." He clicked the pen shut. "What was the apartment number?" The lobby was very quiet and very bright, and a woman with a headset was laughing at something 40 feet away. "Have a good weekend, Mr. Yoon," Olivia said. She went through the glass and out onto 57th Street, and she walked 2 blocks in the wrong direction before she noticed she was doing it. Behind her, in the marble lobby, Yoon Sang-hoon stood exactly where she'd left him until the revolving door had gone around 3 more times. Then he opened the folder against his forearm and clicked the pen back out. He wrote 1 line. "Herkimer. 1st floor. Older woman. Chain on the door." He underlined the last 3 words. Then he closed the folder, tucked it under his arm, and took out his phone as he walked toward the elevator, and by the time the doors opened he was already speaking, and it was not to anyone on the 41st floor. Olivia was still 2 blocks off course when the phone buzzed against her hip, and she answered it standing in the mouth of a hardware store because the traffic was too loud on the corner. "Ms. Grant, Catherine Boyle, Bakwa Foundation, Director of Programs." "How did you get this number?" "From the application you submitted on the 29th of October. Olivia held the phone away from her ear for a second and looked at it. "Say that date again." Boyle said it again. 29th of October. Olivia had filled out that form on a library computer 3 weeks before a black sedan ever parked crooked behind the mall on Flatbush. She had filled out 19 forms that month. She remembered this one only because the site had timed her out at minute 38, and she had typed the whole thing twice. "I want to see the posting," Olivia said. "It's public." "Then it won't cost you anything to leave it up." There was a pause on the line with paper in it. "Ms. Grant, most people ask about the salary." I'm asking about the posting first." She rode the train back to Brooklyn and got off 2 stops early to use the branch on Macon. The listing was there. Intake reconciliation clerk, housing aid line, posted the 9th of October. Salary printed in the body, not hidden behind a phone call. 52,400. She read the number and put both hands flat on the desk. Then she read the responsibilities, and something in her chest went sideways, because the job was a shoebox. Match what was promised to what was paid. Find the gap. Write the gap down. She had been doing that at a kitchen table with a pencil since she was 19. She called Boyle back from the sidewalk. "Who put my name in front of you?" "Nobody put your name in front of me. Your file came up in a sort." "Sorted by what?" "By people who had already been screened in September and never called back because we lost a grant cycle and froze hiring." Boyle's voice had the flatness of a woman who had answered harder questions than this before lunch. "I have 406 files. Yours is one of 11, with a reconciliation background. I clean apartments. You listed 6 years of accounts payable work at a food distributor. Do you want me to read it back to you? Olivia stood there while a bus knelt at the curb and hissed. No, she said. Monday, 8:45. Bring 2 forms of identification. One more question. Yes. Does Han Tae-jun know my name? Boyle answered without a beat of hesitation, and it was the answer that decided her. Mr. Han doesn't know the name of anyone on my payroll below the director level. He has never once asked me. If he had, I'd have told him it wasn't his business, and then I'd have started looking for another job, because I've worked for 4 men like him, and that conversation only goes one way. Olivia hung up and stood on the corner of Macon and Lewis for a long time. Then she called the number Min-jae had written on the back of a card and left in her lobby. And when Tae-jun answered on the second ring, she gave him no greeting at all. I'm taking a job at your foundation. All right. That's not permission, that's notice. She switched the phone to her other ear. You will not walk down that hall. You will not ask about me. If a raise happens, it happens because a woman named Boyle wrote it, and if you touch it, I'll know. And I'll quit in front of everybody, and I'll say why. The line stayed open. She could hear paper moving on a long table. Say something. I was deciding, he said, which part of that to argue with. Pick. None of it, Tae-jun said, and hung up first, which nobody had done to her in a very long time. Monday, she wore the thrift blazer over a t-shirt and flat shoes, and she was through security at 8:31. The badge came out of a machine with her face on it, warm, and Boyle clipped it to a lanyard herself and set it around Olivia's neck beside the pendant chain, like she was hanging a bell on something. 19th floor, not 41. I know what's on 41, Olivia said. Boyle's chin came up a 1/4 inch. Then she walked, and Olivia walked with her. The housing aid line ran out of a room with 11 desks and 1 window. Olivia's desk had a stack of intake folders 8 inches high, and Boyle put 1 finger on the stack and said the only sentence of orientation she was going to get. Somewhere in there, people are getting checks. I need to know if the people are real. By Tuesday afternoon, Olivia had found Roland Mott. RA 9, Relocation Assistance, Code 9, $2,940, disbursed the 14th of August, made out to Roland Mott, Herkimer, Apartment 2C. Documentation on file, a signed acknowledgement, a forwarding address in Yonkers, a claim form filled out in blue ink. She held the page at arm's length and felt her hands go cold before her head caught up. There was a shoebox on the first floor of that building with a rent receipt in it made out to Roland Mott, and Delilah Boone kept it because Roland Mott had been dead 9 years, and it proved that Walter Pruitt had taken money from a dead man's apartment. Olivia had held that receipt in her own hands on Friday morning. Roland Mott had signed for $2,940 in August, in blue ink, with a nice steady hand. She pulled the next folder, then the next. At 4, she went back to March and started forward. 51 of them. 51 relocation payments, all RA9, all to units in Herkimer, Halsey, and Marcy. 31 of the names had left those buildings before the year began. 9 she could not find in any tenant roll at all. And every one of the 51 had the same shape. Claim opened, approved, paid. Inside 72 hours. The rest of the department's claims took 90 days. She wrote it on 1 sheet of paper because that is what a shoebox teaches you. 2 columns. Promised, paid. Then she looked at the routing page stapled to the back of the 51st folder. Approval block, bottom right, a signature going through it at a slant. A signature she couldn't read, in a hand that used the same downstroke on every one of the 51. She photographed nothing. She copied nothing. She carried the 1 sheet into Boyle's office at 5:20 and set it on the desk with 2 fingers. Boyle read it standing up. She read it a second time sitting down. Her hand went to the chain of her reading glasses and stopped there. Where did you get the dead man? He's on my neighbor's rent receipt. That's not an answer a foundation can use. It's the answer that's true. Boyle put the sheet down and squared it to the edge of the desk. When she spoke, her voice had gone into a register Olivia recognized from every landlord, every clinic, every school office in her life. The sound of a person deciding to survive a document. This is a process issue. Olivia's chin came down. Say that slower. Miss Grant. 51 dead people got paid in 72 hours. Say it slower and see if you can get through it. It is an intake issue. The claims were entered under an expedited code that was never meant to skip verification, and somebody in operations has been using it because it clears their queue, and I have flagged the expedited code twice, in writing, in March, and in June. Boyle's hands were flat on the desk. Do you know what happens on Wednesday if I walk this upstairs the way you want me to walk it? You find out. The line gets suspended pending review. Every family with a real claim in that queue waits 8 months. She held Olivia's eyes. I have 700 real ones. So the dead man rides. So the dead man rides until I can take him upstairs with something that can't be argued with. And 1 sheet of your handwriting is not that thing. Boyle picked up the page, folded it once, and put it in the slim leather planner. Give me the neighbor's paper. No, Miss Grant. It's not mine, Olivia said, and picked up her bag. She got home at 6:52 and knew before she reached the second landing, because the dark on that floor had a shape in it that hadn't been there in the morning, and because Delilah's door, the door with the chain, the door that had opened 4 inches for 11 years, was standing open all the way against the wall. She took the last flight in 5 steps. Miss Delilah. The apartment was empty of people. It was not empty of anything else. The cabinets stood open with their doors bent backward. The mattress was half off the frame. The couch was on its face, and the lining had been cut across the bottom with something sharp and pulled down like a coat opening. And on the floor, from the bedroom doorway to the radiator, spread across 11 feet of linoleum, were 11 years of rent receipts. Olivia stood in the middle of them, with her badge still around her neck. They had gone through them. That was the thing that got into her hands and started them shaking. The stacks had been fanned, split, checked, and dropped, and the shoebox itself lay upside down under the window, with the rubber band still around it, and not 1 page was gone. Not one. She could see Roland Mott's from where she stood, face up, corner curled, a dead man's name in Walter Pruitt's handwriting lying in the open, like a dropped receipt from a bodega. $38 sat on the counter in a jar with a bent lid. It was still there. They had not come for money, and they had not come for paper. They had come for something small enough to be inside a shoebox, and hard enough to survive being stepped on, and when it wasn't there, they had cut open a couch. Olivia got to the lobby with her keys in her fist, and Delilah Boone was coming through the front door with a laundry cart, and Malik pushing it, and the boy was talking about the dryer that ate quarters, and Olivia had 4 seconds to put her face back together before he looked up. She used 3 of them. Baby, go sit on the stairs, right there, where I can see the top of your head. Delilah looked past her shoulder at her own doorway and did not say anything at all, and that silence was worse than screaming, because Delilah Boone had a comment for everything on God's earth, and she stood there with her hand on a laundry cart and had nothing. Your door, Olivia said. I know it. You were at the laundromat. Since 5. Delilah's fingers found the small gold cross at her throat. I took the child because his mama wasn't home yet and the boy don't like an empty apartment. Olivia turned her head and looked at the 8-year-old sitting on the 3rd stair with his chin on his knees and his sneakers still a 1/4 inch too long, and she had to hold the banister. 2 hours later, she was upstairs in her own kitchen with the door bolted, and her own apartment had been done too. Quieter, neater, cruel in a different way. Every drawer open exactly 2 inches, the menu drawer emptied onto the table, the empty coin jar taken down from the cabinet, unscrewed, and set upside down on the counter with its lid beside it. They had unscrewed a jar with nothing in it. She was still standing over it when someone knocked, and the knock was wrong. 4 soft ones high on the door, and a woman's voice said, Ms. Grant? Alicia Nyai, Administration for Children's Services. Olivia opened the door with the chain on, which she had never once done in 11 years in that building. The woman was young and tired and holding a folder against her chest, the way you hold something you have been holding all day. I have a report. I'm required to see the child. See him from where you're standing. Ms. Grant, if I have to come back with a police escort. Then you'll come back with one. He's asleep. You want to look at his face while he's sleeping? You can look at it from this doorway with the light off, and you'll be looking at a kid who did his homework at that table. They stood there. The woman's eyes went down the hall, and Olivia saw her see it. The drawers, the menus on the floor, the jar on the counter with its lid off. What happened in here? Somebody came in today, Did you call the police? I'm calling them tonight. Before or after I came, the woman said, and wrote something, and that was when Olivia understood that there was no answer to the question, that yes was a lie, and no was a fact, and both of them cost the same. She took the chain off. Read me the report, Olivia said, the words of it. The woman looked at her, and then did, because sometimes the tired ones do. Anonymous. Received Friday, 4:11 p.m. Alleges the child is left with a non-relative for long periods. Alleges no food in the home. Alleges unknown adult men, quote, connected to organized crime, unquote, entering the residence at night. Alleges the mother recently came into a sum of money she cannot explain, and that the apartment's utilities. Stop. Ms. Grant. Friday, 4:11. Yes. Pruitt had knocked on Delilah's door at 6:30 Friday morning asking about a Korean gentleman. He had stood in her lobby at 7:20 with a purple stamp and a face that had gone the wrong color when a balance hit 0. 9 hours later, a phone call. Open the refrigerator, Olivia said. Ma'am? You wrote down a jar. Write down the refrigerator too. Open it. There was milk in it now. There were 9 eggs, a bag of apples, ground turkey, a head of cabbage, and a box of the cereal with the bird on it, bought Monday with the first draw on $52,400 a year, and the woman looked into it for 3 seconds and closed it and wrote nothing at all, and that told Olivia everything about which parts of a report get written down. The complaint number, Olivia said, in writing, before you leave. The woman wrote it on the back of her own card. At the door, she stopped. The home visit is scheduled. I don't set the date. It'll come by mail. Olivia bolted the door and stood with her forehead against it and counted to 10 and got to 6. The next knock came at 9:15 and she knew that one. She opened it all the way, and Han Tae-jun was standing in her hallway with his overcoat over his arm instead of on his shoulders, and Min Jae was at the top of the stairs with a hand flat against the wall like he was holding the building up. I heard at 7:40, Tae-jun said. From who? Does it matter? Everything matters now, Olivia said. That's what today was. He came in. He looked at the drawers and the menus and the jar on the counter with its lid off, and he stopped at the jar for longer than he had stopped at anything in her apartment before, and something moved through his face and got caught somewhere behind the jaw. Then he set a phone on her table, screen up. There's a car downstairs. It leaves in 20 minutes with you and Malik in it. 40 minutes from here there's a building where the elevator needs a fob, and the doorman has my name. 2 rooms, not 1, because he'll want his own. There's a woman named Han Na, who has a key and no reason to use it, and she'll be on your floor until Friday. He put a second thing on the table, a card. That's Margarito Konjo. She has done 14 ACS cases and lost one. She's expecting your call at 8 tomorrow. I've paid her through March. Olivia held on to the back of the chair. The school, he said. There's a seat at a school on Clinton for January. It's 22 minutes on the stop, and the complaint dies the second there's a lawyer standing between you and... Stop. He stopped. Olivia let go of the chair and came around it, and she was not loud, because Malik was 10 feet away behind a door, and she had learned at 24 how to take a voice down to a wire and make it cut anyway. You did it again. I moved fast because they moved fast. You moved For me? She held up one finger. 20 minutes. A car. A woman on my floor with a key. A school on Clinton. In January, 22 minutes on the train. You have the train figured. You've had all of this since 7:40. She put the finger down. You didn't come here to ask me a question. You came here to tell me what I'm doing at 9:35. Yes, he said. Say the rest. There is no rest. Say the word. His mouth closed. He looked at the table, and the table had a burn mark shaped like nothing in the corner of the placemat, and he looked at that instead of at her, and it was the first time she had ever seen him look at a thing to avoid a person. You want to do... Fix. Olivia said. Say it. I want to fix it. There it is. Because I can. It came out of him fast, and then he took hold of it, and the taking hold was more frightening than the volume. He put both hands on the back of the kitchen chair, and the wood complained. Do you know what today was, on the other side of it? Today Somebody went through 11 years of a 61-year-old woman's paper looking for a piece of metal. They cut a couch, they unscrewed a jar. They came into a house where an 8-year-old sleeps, and they counted his mother's coins to see if there was a key in the bottom, and the only reason there was nobody home is that the dryer on Fulton eats quarters. Olivia's arms came around herself before she could stop them. "They will come back," he said. "Not because of your rent. Not because of Pruitt. Because a man I have known for 11 years has decided a story about you, and a story about your son, and that story has a piece of metal in it. And once a man like that has a story, he does not check it. He acts on it. And when he is wrong, he does not apologize. He cleans." "Then tell me the story." "I don't have it yet." "Then you don't get to move my child." They stood on opposite sides of the placemat. And then Han Tae-jun did something she had not seen him do since a flooded parking lot. He stopped arguing and put his hand into his coat. The wallet came out. He opened it on her table, the same 3 seconds, the money, the cards, the flap at the back. And this time his thumb went straight past everything and pulled out the photograph and turned it around and set it down on the burn mark, facing her. A girl, 19, maybe 20, sitting on a step somewhere with the light behind her, one shoe off, laughing at whoever was holding the camera with her whole face, the way people laugh when they don't know a picture is being taken. She had his jaw. "Han Soo-yeon," he said, "my sister." Olivia put her fingers on the edge of the table. She was 22. "Our father had 4 men working for him, and a room in Incheon, and he had already put my name on the room. He put hers on it in March." Taejun's voice had gone very level, the way water goes level. She said no, in front of them. She said, "I'll take the shop, I'll take nothing, I'll take a bus, but I will not take that room." And she left. And then for 4 months she called me on Sundays. He touched the corner of the photograph and moved it a 1/16 of an inch, squaring it to nothing. The last Sunday she said, "Come out." She said, "You're the only one they'd let leave. They'll let you leave because you're the one they want. And if you go now, there's nothing left for anybody to fight over." And I told her. He stopped. Olivia waited. She had learned to wait from a boy who told jokes with the middle missing. "I told her I would," he said. "I told her I'd come out. I said it on a Sunday, and I meant it the way a man means a thing he intends to do on some other Sunday." He lifted his eyes. They found her on the Thursday, on a street, in a coat she'd bought herself with money from a shop. Nothing in the kitchen moved. Down the hall, the radiator that had not worked since October made a sound like a spoon dropped in a sink, and neither of them turned. "Who?" Olivia said. "That is a very long answer, and I have spent 14 years shortening it." He closed the wallet. "This is the short one. I stayed. I got very good at it. And I made her a promise at a stone in the ground that whatever else I was, no one would ever again ask me to sign for a room and get told no by somebody with nothing, and I'd let them lose." He looked up. "Your son told me no in a parking lot with water in his shoes. You told me no over a case of money and carried it down 3 flights in a t-shirt in 41 degrees. Do you understand what you look like to me?" "I'm not her," Olivia said. "I know that." "No, you don't." She said it gently, and it landed harder than if she had thrown it. "You've been running the same 20 minutes for 14 years. Get her in the car. Get her out of the room. Get her to a floor with a fob on the elevator. You couldn't do it for her, so you're doing it for me. And I'm standing in my own kitchen watching a man try to win a fight that ended before my son was born." His hands opened on the chair. "She didn't want the car," Olivia said. "She wanted you on the bus with her." Something went out of his face, not anger, the other thing, the thing that holds a face up. "So here's mine," she said. "You want to fight for us? Then fight where I can see you. You bring me what you find, and you put it on this table, and you let me decide what it costs. And if I decide wrong, you won't. Let me be wrong. Because that's what it is when it's mine." She pointed at the photograph without touching it. "She didn't get that. Give it to me." Taejun stood in her kitchen for a long moment. Then he picked up the photograph and put it back behind the money and closed the flap over it with his thumb. "Get out of my kitchen," Olivia said. "Olivia, tonight. Get out of my kitchen tonight." Her hand had found the doorframe. "You brought a car and a lawyer and a school and a woman with a key. And you did not bring one question. Come back with a question. He picked up his coat. At the door he stopped, and he did not touch her, and he did not turn around all the way. The car stays on the corner until morning. Nobody comes up. Nobody knocks. A pause. That's not for you. That's for me. I'll sleep in it if I have to. Then sleep in it. The door closed. She heard 4 steps. Then nothing. For a while. And then the sound of a heavy man in expensive shoes going downstairs. He had gone down before, past a landing where the light had been out since August. Olivia turned around. Malik was standing in the hallway in his socks. Was that him? Yeah. Is he coming back? She opened her mouth, and there was nothing in it. Malik looked past her at the drawers hanging open and the jar on the counter with its lid off, and he was 8, and he had been listening through a door his whole life the way children in small apartments do. Mom, he said, did somebody take something? No, baby. Nobody took anything. Then why'd they come? And Olivia Grant stood in her ransacked kitchen at 4 minutes to 11 and understood that she had no answer, and that not having one was the whole shape of the thing now, that her rent was owned, her neighbor's floor was covered in paper, a stranger with a folder was coming back with a date on it, and somewhere out there a story about her son was walking around in a room she'd never seen, being told by a man she'd never met. Then the phone on the table rang. It was not Boyle. It was not Taijun. The screen said no caller id, and she looked at it through 2 rings, and she picked it up because a woman with a child asleep in a broken house picks up. She said nothing. The voice on the other end was old and unhurried and amused in a way that had never once been funny, and it spoke English carefully, the way a man does when he wants you to hear that he could have chosen not to. Mrs. Grant, it said. 4 minutes. Her hand closed on the counter. Your boy had it 4 minutes, the voice said. A locksmith needs 90 seconds. A breath, almost a laugh. So, where is my key? Olivia walked the phone to the window and looked down at the street before she answered. The car was still on the corner. Its parking lights were on. You called a house with a child in it at 11 o'clock, she said. So you're not smart, you're just old. The breath on the other end changed. Somewhere behind him, ice moved in a glass. Where is my key? The man said again. Say the whole thing, Olivia said. You want me to answer a question? Ask me one. There was a pause with money in it. She had heard pauses like that from landlords and once from a doctor, and she knew what it meant. The man had expected crying, and crying was the part of the script he knew how to read. Your son picked up a wallet, he said, in the rain. He held it 4 minutes. In 4 minutes, a man makes an impression in clay. In 4 minutes, a woman with nothing takes a photograph with a phone. He doesn't have a phone. Then you do. I have a phone with a cracked screen and $41 of minutes on it, Olivia said, and you'd have to knock to see it, and you're not the knocking kind. You send other men to turn over an old woman's couch. Ice again. The couch, he said, was thorough. It was cowardly. Her voice stayed flat. Down on the corner, a door opened on the sedan and Min Jae stood up out of it and looked at her window. She raised one finger against the glass and he stopped where he was. You want me to tell you where a key is? Here's what I know about your key, mister. I know it doesn't have teeth. I know it doesn't have a plastic head. I know it's flat and it's about as long as my thumb. And I know it lives behind a photograph of a dead woman. The silence went long. You've seen it, he said. I've seen a lot of things this week, Olivia said. I saw 11 years of a woman's rent receipts on a floor. I saw my son's coin jar unscrewed and turned upside down on my counter, which tells me your men thought an 8-year-old hid a key in a jar he uses for lunch money. I saw a woman from the city stand in my kitchen and ask me if my child is safe with me. She let that sit. You want to know what I found out from all of it? Nobody who's sure of anything makes that much noise. Mrs. Grant. Miss. You are being very brave with a boy asleep behind you. Her hand tightened and then, deliberately, opened. He's not asleep, she said. He's standing in the hallway in his socks, because that's what he does when the phone rings late. And I want you to hear this, because you're going to be thinking about it later. My son gave that wallet back in 8 seconds. He saw it and he ran. Whatever you paid for, whatever you're waiting on, he wrecked it in 8 seconds, in the rain, for free, because I taught him to. That's the whole crime. Take it to a judge. For the first time, the old man's voice lost its shape. 8 seconds, he repeated. Ask somebody who was there, Olivia said. And then she hung up first. She stood with the dark phone in her hand and understood, without any pleasure, what she had just given away. She had told a man his story had a hole in it. Men like that never went home to think. Malik came in from the hallway. Who was that? Somebody who's wrong about us, Olivia said. She put the phone face down on the counter next to the jar. Get your coat, you're coming with me for 4 minutes. She took him down the 3 flights and out to the corner in her coat over a t-shirt, and she stood beside the car window until it came down. Taejun's face was gray with the hours. He had a folded page on his knee, and he put it away when he saw the boy. An old man just called my house, Olivia said. Careful English. He wants a key. He thinks Malik copied it in the parking lot. He gave me a number, 90 seconds for a locksmith, like it was arithmetic he'd already done for somebody else. Nothing in Taejun's face moved, and that was its own answer. You know him, Olivia said. I know the voice. Then here's my question back, she said. You told me a man you've known 11 years decided a story about my son. That man is not the man on my phone, so somebody sold that story to somebody. I want to know who wrote it. She leaned down, one hand on the roof of the car. You said come back with a question. Fine, mine's on the table. Bring me the story, Han Taejun. Not a car, not an apartment with a fob, the story, with the part that's true and the part somebody made up, and how you tell them apart. That takes days. Then take days, Olivia said. We're not going anywhere. That's the whole problem, remember. We won't move. Malik was staring at Min-jae, and Min-jae, for reasons nobody in the car could have explained, gave him a nod like men give each other on a job site. Miss Grant. Taejun's voice came out lower. If he calls again. Then he calls, she said. I've been called worse by men with less. She took her son back up the stairs. The days after that had a shape. On Wednesday, Delilah Boone let them into her apartment and stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, while Olivia knelt on 11 feet of linoleum. Nobody had touched the receipts since Tuesday. Malik started at the far wall and worked in. Baby, don't stack them, Olivia said. Line them by the year at the top. 19 years old, over here, 10, 9. There's 2 9s. There's supposed to be 2 9s. Put them together. It took the boy 4 evenings. He was the only one small enough to work under the radiator, and by Friday he could tell you the year of a receipt by the color of the paper. Delilah sat in the good chair with the cut lining hanging under her, and let him. Once, near the end, she said, out of nowhere, That's my Terrence's handwriting on that one, and Malik said, Okay, and put it in the pile without asking anything, and Olivia had to go stand in the kitchen for a minute. On Thursday the mail came, and the date of the home visit was in it. The following Monday, between 9 and noon. On Friday, Olivia found the second thing. She had gone back through the housing aid line week by week, and the RA9 payments were only the noise. Underneath them was a rhythm. Every phantom disbursement had cleared on a day when a fee posted against a live tenant in the same building. Not near, on. Same day, same building, sometimes the same hour. She wrote it on one sheet, 2 columns again, and kept it off the 19th floor. She called Marguerite Okonjo from a stairwell instead, and asked what the lawyer charged. Mr. Han settled it through March, Okonjo said. I know what he did, Olivia said. I'm asking what you charge. There was a silence with a smile somewhere in it. 450 an hour. I make 52.4, Olivia said. I can do 100 a month, that's 14 years, and I'm 24, so I've got the time. Tear up his and take mine. Miss Grant, that is a terrible financial decision. It's the only one on the table that's mine, Olivia said. Do you want it or not? Okonjo took it. She also took the number on the back of Alicia Ndiaye's card, and a report received on a Friday at 4:11 p.m. by a caller who claimed to have seen adult men connected to organized crime entering an apartment at night, and she said one thing before she hung up that Olivia carried around for 6 days like a coin in a pocket. Anonymous doesn't mean unknown. It means unsigned. Min-jae spent those 6 days in a linen company's back office in Queens. The mall's own cameras had rolled over on the 4th day, but the loading dock at the rear of the lot belonged to a commercial laundry, and their camera watched the dock and, past it, 40 feet of flooded asphalt and a clogged drain, and their system kept 90 days because the owner's insurance made him. It took Min-jae 4 days to find the company, 1 to find the owner, and 1 more to sit in a room with a man who wanted to be paid and then, once he understood nobody was going to hurt him, wanted mostly to talk about his knee. On the 11th day after the rain, a Monday, the same Monday as the home visit, Han Tae-jun knocked on Olivia's door at 7:40 in the morning with a laptop under his arm and a question in his mouth. Alicia Ndiaye would arrive at 9. "May I put this on your table?" he said. Olivia looked at him for a second longer than she needed to. Then she stepped back and let him in, and he crossed her kitchen and set the laptop down on the placemat with the lemons and the burn mark, and he took his hands off it and stepped away from it, and that was the part she noticed. "Sit down," she said. "You look like a man who slept in a car." "I did. Twice." Malik came out with his backpack on and stopped when he saw the screen. "Should he see it?" Tae-jun asked. "Ask him," Olivia said. Tae-jun turned. It took him a moment to arrange himself for it. "Malik, there is a video of the day you found the wallet. I would like your mother to watch it. You may stay or you may go down to Miss Delilah's." "Is it me?" "It's before you." Malik thought about it with his whole face. "Then it's not my business," he said, and shrugged his backpack up and went, and neither adult said anything for a second after the door closed. Tae-jun turned the screen. The picture was gray and warped at the edges, and the timestamp ran in the corner in white digits. Olivia saw the lot from behind. The black sedan came in and parked across 2 spaces. The doors opened. "Watch the second car," Tae-jun said. There was a second car. It had been sitting in the row nearest the dock the whole time, and it was gray, and nobody would have looked at it twice, and the man who got out of it had a folder under his arm. He walked to the sedan the way a man walks to his own office. He met the 3 of them at the door. He said something to Tae-jun, and Tae-jun turned to say something to Jung-ho about the umbrella, and in the 2 seconds when Tae-jun's shoulders were turned, Yoon Sang-hoon's right hand came out from under the folder with a black wallet in it, and went into the loose outer pocket of Tae-jun's coat, and came back empty. Olivia's hand went to her mouth. She took it down again. "Again," she said. He ran it again. The coat was a heavy overcoat with a deep flap pocket, and it was raining, and the man was walking, and 40 seconds later, exactly 40 seconds, on the 14th step across the flooded asphalt, the black wallet slid out of the pocket on its own and dropped into 3 inches of standing water without making a sound anyone could hear over the rain. Sang-hoon was already back in the gray car. He was still in it at the moment the boy started running. You could see him through the windshield, and the reason you could see him was that he leaned forward. "Stop it there," Olivia said. The frame held. A man behind glass, leaning toward the thing he'd planted, watching a child sprint through the water with a wallet held up over his head. Olivia counted the timestamp herself. From the moment Malik turned his head to the moment his hand closed on it. 8 seconds. She had said the number on the phone because she'd wanted it to be true. It was true. "He put it in your pocket," she said. "Yes." "Why?" Tae-jun looked at the screen, not at her. "Because I would never have felt it fall. Because that pocket has dropped a phone twice. Because the lot floods, the drain is clogged, and the wallet would sit there in the open, in a poor neighborhood, in the rain, as long as it took." Each thing he said made the next thing worse. He needed somebody else to pick it up. Anybody. No. He turned the laptop a fraction. He waited 11 minutes for the right one. "There's a woman with a stroller at 4:09. She walks within 8 feet of it. He stays in the car." Olivia felt the floor of her stomach go. "He was waiting for a kid," she said. "He was waiting for you," Tae-jun said. "For anyone the story would fit. A boy that age, a mother in a coat that's been mended. Somebody a room full of men would believe about instantly, without asking a single question, because they'd already decided what people like you do with a stranger's money in the rain." Say the story. The story is, the key was out of my hands for 4 minutes in a public lot, and a family with an eviction notice on the table took a copy before they gave it back. Then, in a month, maybe 2, the box gets opened by someone who shouldn't be able to open it. And there's a boy's fingerprints on a wallet, and a mother's name on a school envelope, and a bank transfer nobody can explain. And no one, Olivia, asks whether an 8-year-old can even do it. They only ask why I let it happen. And then, Then I'm the man who lost the key, Taejun said. That's not a mistake in my father's house. That's a vacancy. Olivia sat down slowly, across the table from him, with the burn mark between them. And the man on my phone buys the vacancy, she said. Choi Do-yoon, Taejun said. It was the first time the name had been spoken in the apartment. He pays for the story. He gets the 3 buildings emptied through Pruitt and sold as one lot. And he gets the seat. Sang-hoon collects from both ends and keeps his tie on. And my son fell out of the sky and broke it in 8 seconds. Your son, Taejun said and stopped, and started again. Your son saved my life on his way home from school and refused a reward for it, and I stood there in the water and tried to hand him money. Olivia looked at her own hands on the table. 11 days. She had been standing 40 feet from a man in a flooded parking lot, watching him put a wallet back in an inside pocket with a button flap and press the flap twice with 2 fingers, and she had thought, what a strange thing to do. She understood it now, at her kitchen table, with the rain long over. He had already known his own coat was lying to him. He just hadn't known who taught it. Ask me your question, she said. Taejun put his palms flat on the table. What does this cost? He said. Not what should be done. What does it cost you? You tell me the number, and I don't argue with it. Olivia went to the door. She opened it, and Delilah Boone was already on the landing with the shoebox in both arms, and Malik behind her holding the lid, because Olivia had told her Sunday night to be there at 8, and Delilah Boone had never in 11 years been late to anything. Olivia took the box out of the old woman's arms with her own 2 hands and carried it to her own table and set it down in front of Han Tae-jun, and then she took her hands off it, the way he had taken his hands off the laptop. Now it's yours, she said, because I decided. Sit down, Miss Delilah. They worked the table until 3 minutes to 9. The receipts went in the middle, in year order, the way an 8-year-old had spent 4 evenings arranging them. Olivia's sheet went on the left. Taejun's fee ledger went on the right, and he read it upside down, because he had turned it toward her without thinking, and then had to laugh at himself, once, which nobody in that kitchen had heard before. The receipts had Walter Pruitt's pen on them, a number written, struck through, a bigger number written above it, in his hand, 4 times across 11 years, including once on a receipt made out to a man who had been dead for 2. The fee ledger had LF2A on it 906 times. And Olivia's sheet had the rhythm, 51 relocation payments, each one clearing in 72 hours, each one landing on the same day as a fee posted against a living tenant in the same building. He wasn't stealing from the fund, Olivia said. He was paying Pruitt with it. Every time Walter squeezed a real family, a dead man in Yonkers got $2,940. That's not fraud, that's payroll. Taejun turned to the routing page of the 51st file, where the illegible signature ran its same hard downstroke. He looked at it for a long time. That's not a signature, he said. That's a habit. He's signed my name that way for 9 years. Delilah leaned in with her glasses on their cord. Whose hand? Yoon Sang-hoon, Taejun said. The buzzer went at 9:04. Alicia Ndiaye came up 3 flights and found 4 people, a shoebox, a laptop, a boy who had stayed home from school, and Margarito Konjo by the window with her own name on the retainer. She stayed 40 minutes. She opened the refrigerator without being asked, closed it, and wrote nothing. She looked at the coin jar, back in the cupboard, screwed shut, with $2 in it. At the door she said, Miss Grant, I'm going to note that the report has indicators of retaliation. That's not my word, Olivia said. That's yours. It's mine, Ndiaye said. I've got 109 of these open. I know what they smell like. The 41st floor took 11 minutes. Olivia went up in the elevator with the shoebox on her lap and her ears popping at 19. She wore the white button shirt from her mother's funeral because it was the only thing she owned that was equal to a room. Taejun did not put a hand anywhere near her back. Yoon Sang-hoon came in smiling with the folder under his arm. He got as far as, Miss Grant, what a pleasant, before he saw the shoebox on the long table and the laptop next to it, and the 51st routing page turned face up with his own downstroke on it, and the smile stayed on for another 1.5 seconds, like a light in a house where nobody lives. You told me everyone here had heard about the child, Olivia said. That was Friday morning. The child had picked up that wallet Thursday at 4:20. Sang-hoon's mouth opened. "You had a sheet with my name printed on it," she said. "I hadn't called, I hadn't written. Nobody knew I was coming, because I didn't know I was coming until I read the bottom line of my own eviction notice at 9 in the morning. She put one finger on the table. "You'd printed it because you'd been waiting for me since the day you dropped it in his pocket. You just didn't know which door I'd come through." "Sir," Sang-hoon said, turning. "This woman." "Talk to me," Olivia said. "He's not going to save you, and I'm the one holding the box." That was the moment his hand went to his cuff. He caught himself doing it and put the hand back on the folder, and it was too late. Everyone in the room had seen a man reach for a burn scar he'd been hiding for 20 years. Min-jae took the folder out from under his arm without any drama at all. Inside, on the third page, in Sang-hoon's small, careful writing, was a line about an older woman on a first floor with a chain on her door, with 3 words underlined. Tae-jun read it standing up. When he was finished, he set it down and said 4 words in Korean, and Jung-ho stepped into the doorway, and it was the same measure he had used on Sang-hoon in a hallway 11 days earlier, and this time it meant something else. "Not a river," Olivia said. The room stopped. "Say that again," Tae-jun said. "You heard me." She was still standing. "He doesn't get to disappear. If he disappears, every one of those 51 families is a rumor forever, and Walter Pruitt walks into a courthouse next year and says organized crime took his bookkeeper. I want him signed. I want him deposed. I want that downstroke on a page with a docket number on it." She looked at Sang-hoon, who had gone the color of his own shirt. "He wanted a room full of men to look at my son and see a thief, so he can go stand in a room full of men and be looked at." Tae-jun took a long breath through his nose. "You understand what you're asking me to give up," he said. "Yes," Olivia said, "the part you like." He gave it up. Yoon Sang-hoon walked out of the building at 11:20 that morning, without his folder, without his tie bar, and without the 9 years of his signature. He was in a federal proffer room by Thursday. He gave them Pruitt in 90 minutes because he had never been brave, and Choi Do-yoon in 3 sessions because he had never been loyal either. Do-yoon went down the way old men like that go down, not in the street. He had spent 14 months and a great deal of money on 2 lots in the middle of a rectangle and a story about a stolen key. And when the story turned out to be 40 seconds of a man's hand on a laundry company's camera, there was nothing left in his hands but the lots. Nobody in his house said a word about it. They simply stopped opening his door. 6 weeks later, the government took the lots, and Choi Do-yoon sat in a cream suit in a room he owned, alone, while a black woman he had telephoned once gave a deposition about him with her hands folded in her lap. Walter Pruitt was arrested in his own lobby. It was 7:20 on a Tuesday. He was waiting with the clipboard against his chest, the way he waited. Delilah opened her door 4 inches with the chain on and watched. 906 counts of an illegal fee, 31 counts of a scheme to defraud, 1 count with the words "dead man" in it. He looked over his shoulder for Olivia while they walked him out. She was up on the 2nd floor landing, in the dark where the light had been burned out since August, and she let him look and said nothing at all. The 4C family stayed. The Ortegas stayed. 96 evictions died in a filing cabinet. The paper on Olivia Grant's apartment did not die in a drawer. She had refused that. It went into a receivership with the other 95, and every one of those families got a letter with their real balance on it, and hers said $2,900, and she paid it 100 at a time for the next 2.5 years, on the 3rd of the month, with a receipt she kept in a shoebox of her own. In February, she bought Malik a pair of shoes that fit. Size 4, full price, out of her own check, in a store with a bench in it. He walked the length of the aisle twice with his jaw set, testing, the way she'd taught him without ever meaning to teach him anything. In April, Miss Rodriguez ran the museum trip again for the kids who'd missed it. The fee was $22. Olivia paid it in cash, in the classroom, at 3:15 on a Wednesday, and did not let him see her hand it over. Han Tae-jun came to the door once more that spring, at 8 o'clock, alone, with no car on the corner and no case in his hand. He knocked 3 times. Olivia opened it all the way. "I have a question," he said. "You're getting better at those. The receivership needs a director for the reconciliation, somebody the tenants will speak to." He held nothing out. He put his hands in his pockets, which she had never seen him do. It's 91,000. I have nothing to do with the hiring, and I won't. And if you take it, you'll never see me in that hallway. Boyle posts it Friday, whether you apply or not. A pause. I'm asking if I may tell her your name. Behind Olivia, in the kitchen, a boy was doing his homework on the floor with his shoes on because he liked them. She thought about a jar of coins. She thought about 11 feet of linoleum and a photograph with soft corners, and a man who had spent 14 years trying to buy back 20 minutes he never spent on a bus. You can tell her, Olivia said, and then you go home and you sleep in a bed. He almost smiled. He turned to go, and she said his name, and he stopped on the top step, and she gave him the only thing she had ever meant to give him. My son gave your wallet back because I taught him not to take what belongs to somebody else, she said. That part's done. Now you go prove your power won't be used to take what belongs to us. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever taught a child something you weren't sure the world would reward, and watched it cost you before it saved you? Have you ever found the numbers that proved you were right, and been told it was only a process issue? Would you have handed the case of money back down 3 flights of stairs? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about honesty, dignity, and truth, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.